Hey guys, how's it going? This is CRP speaking to you live on, what is it, Sunday, June 6, 2021, the year of our Lord. Oh yeah. So I'm going to be talking about the petrodollar and if it's ending. Now, of course, the whole reason that I put the fairly boring title on it is because I'm really going to be talking about not merely hyperinflation, but also, the collapse of the dollar and the possible trigger to war. Because the last video I put up was whether there's a chance that there will be a war between China and the United States. And I think that there is. I think that there are a lot of people in the United States who want one for various reasons that I outlined in that video. But here we're going to talk about it from the point of view of the Chinese, okay? And I think it's really interesting. And, rather than just blabber on and on, I'll just get right to it, okay? I'm going to turn off my camera because you guys don't really need to see me. I'm here. I'm live. I'm not an AI yet, there's something else I wanted to talk to you about. Yeah, I'm going to continue to be doing a lot of this geopolitical stuff and economic stuff on Patreon because it seems to me, and you guys tell me if you agree or not, that we're headed into some sort of crisis moment. Hit +1 if you think that over the next, 18 months, not more than that, we're going to have some sort of major global crisis. It feels like that. It feels like everything is just ramping up to some sort of break. And so, I'm paying attention to the economic situation. I'm paying attention to the geopolitical situation. I'm paying attention to all that stuff, and I'm sort of like tuning out a lot of the bullshit of SJWs and all that shit. Because right now it seems that what's going on geopolitically and economically is a lot more important. And I think it's going to catch a lot of people flat-footed. I, at this time, have a conception as to where we are headed into the future, but this is speculation. You always have to remember that. And I've been very wrong before. Remember, back in the day, I thought that the COVID-19 was airborne Ebola and that we were all fucked. And look how it turned out to be, right? So I'm going to speculate in the direction of what would happen if there is a major war with China, a major break with China, and how at this time it seems as if we're all headed in that general direction. And here in this webinar, I'm going to be talking more about the issue of the dollar, the currency, which is, of course, crucial in any modern economy. And so, okay, without further ado, let me just dive right into it. Okay, so the first thing we have to understand about the geopolitical situation is how we got to where we are today. Now, it all started after the Second World War, actually before the Second World War had properly ended in 1944, in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, at a hotel there. There gathered representatives of 44 countries, including the Soviet Union and China, by the way. They were there at Bretton Woods. They didn't sign off on Bretton Woods, but they were there. They were represented. The Chinese delegation, of course, was of the nationalists, and that nationalist government went on to Taiwan. The communists, of course, were not there in 1944, but the Soviets were, okay? So do keep that in mind. And they did not ratify this, the Bretton Woods Treaty, the agreement. But anyway, the Bretton Woods Agreement, what was it? Well, there was the notion that the major economies were going to be devastated. And so there was going to be a need for a way to convert currency, but in a controlled manner. Because a lot of economists in 1944 thought that excessive trade and deregulated trade had caused the Great Depression because of the speculation and whatnot. They failed to appreciate that a lot of the times what had happened was that the government intervention had created the inefficiencies that led to rampant speculation and great fortunes being made, but the system overall being made unstable. And so in 1944, the Bretton Woods Agreement was basically a mechanism, a command and control mechanism for the global economy. And it was a very complicated system that it's not, excuse me, it's not worth getting into in that level of detail at this time. But what's important to understand is that The US dollar was declared the reserve currency. That is the currency that the rest of the world would use to trade. Okay? Now, this is very important because the currencies of the rest of the world would be pegged to the dollar. It's not necessarily that, country X and country Y that wanted to trade with one another had to buy dollars on both sides of the trade in order to make the trade. No, they could trade with their own currencies, but those individual currencies would be pegged to the dollar. And the dollar, in turn, would be pegged to gold because at that time, the United States held 2/3 of the global gold reserve. And so it was thought that, the dollar could be converted to gold and all these other currencies around the world would be converted into dollars. And so that way, the global economy would be backed by dollars, by gold, ultimately, indirectly through the US dollar. Now, this system, it was necessary after the war for various reasons that are not very important to get into at this point. But the important issue is that in 1971, by 1971 rather, the US ended the fixed gold exchange. And that is what turned the dollar into a fiat currency. Now, why does all this matter? You have to understand something about currencies that we today, living in our contemporary economy, don't realize. We have a euro, we have a dollar, we have a pound, we have, like here in Ukraine, the hryvnia. These currencies are fiat currencies. That is, they're not backed by anything. And we accept them. See, this is a new system, a new paradigm. It only really started in 1971. Because before 1971, every currency in the world was backed by something solid. Okay? In the past, it was gold. The British pound sterling was based on gold. I mean, originally, the name of the pound sterling came from a pound of silver, I believe, or a pound of gold. I forgot. It doesn't matter. The point is that every currency in the past, especially the reserve currency, was based on a physical, tangible asset that is gold. Remember, currencies, paper money, they originated as sales receipts, as receipts of holding for deposits in gold. And that's how they originally came to pass, these little bits of paper that, we swap around. So by 1971, though, the Bretton Woods Agreement had essentially come to an end because what had happened was that the United States, because of the Vietnam War and other major expenditures, including the moon missions, well, its currency was inflating. It had to print a lot of money, and because of that, it just simply did not have the gold reserves to back up all its currency. And because of that, gold pricing was going a little bit loopy. And so it just made sense. And so the dollar ended the fixed gold exchange in 1971. And that's when the dollar became a fiat currency. And almost immediately it started to inflate rather badly. From 1971 through to 1980, the dollar inflated roughly about, I think it was like, I saw the figure was like 11% per year or something like that on average, because there were some years that were really bad. 1979, 1980 specifically, and also 1974, I do believe, 74, 75. But anyway, the point. See, the dollar was not backed by anything. It was only backed by convention by the period 1971 to 1974, okay? It was no longer backed by gold. Now, here is where something happened that very few people pay attention to or even know about. A lot of economists, even economic historians, don't know about this. But it's crucial. It's the Simons deal of 1974. William Simon was Richard Nixon's Treasury Secretary. And in July of 1974, he flew out to Saudi Arabia. Because what was happening is that the Saudis were accumulating a lot of dollars, because the United States was importing oil and shelling out dollars for Saudi oil. And so there was a severe imbalance of payments vis-a-vis Saudi Arabia and the other oil-producing countries against the United States. And so William Simon went out to Saudi Arabia to cut a deal with the Saudis. And the deal was very, very simple. The Saudis and their allies on OPEC would agree to sell oil only in dollars, and not just to the United States, but to anyone, Japan, England, Germany, anyone who wanted Saudi oil and the oil of Saudi allies such as Kuwait and whatnot. Well, Simons wanted the Saudi Arabians rather, to agree to only sell their oil in dollars, and in exchange, the United States would guarantee Saudi Arabia's physical security, military security, and also sell it a whole bunch of military doodads and train Saudi princes to fly jets and all that good shit. Okay? But that was the basic deal. Sell your oil for dollars, and we, the United States, will protect you. Now, this turned out to be one of the most important deals in financial history, and I'll explain why. Because, you see, if Saudi Arabia is going to sell its oil only in dollars, not even in dinars is the name of the Saudi currency. Yeah, dinars. It's not going to sell in dinars. It's going to sell it in dollars, US dollars exclusively. Okay? Now, what does that happen? It means that for all intent, as an economic unit, put it this way, Saudi Arabia is now part of the United States. Saudi Arabia is, for all intents and purposes, the 51st United State. Think about it. See, because Saudi Arabia, you look on a map, it's on the other side of the globe. It's like, I don't know, like 12 time zones ahead of the United States, right? Literally on the other side of the world. Or actually, no, 9, it doesn't matter. It's a Muslim country. It's a kingdom. It has a king, and crown princes and all kinds of shit. It essentially practices slavery. Women have no rights. I mean, all kinds of stuff, right? You couldn't come to two more disparate countries. But the fact that Saudi Arabia sells its oil and has sold its oil since 1974 exclusively in dollars means that in an economic sense, Saudi Arabia is just another state, no different from California or Rhode Island. Because see, in California and Rhode Island, the goods and services sold in those two states, they sell them in dollars. They don't sell them in yen or pound sterling or euros. No, they sell them in dollars. What's Saudi Arabia selling? Oil. And because of the Simons deal, the dollar became backed by oil. Oil is backing it. You need dollars to buy oil from OPEC, or at least Saudi Arabia and the bloc of oil-producing countries allied to Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar. You see the move there, and that's the invention of the petrodollar. People talk about the petrodollar all the time, but a lot of times they don't even know what the fuck they're talking about. And the key issue is about the petrodollar is that the Saudis and the oil-producing countries are, in an economic sense, the 51st states of the United States. And because of this, people around the world need dollars. They need dollars to buy oil. If you're in Japan and you have a fistful of yen, you've made a lot of money on, selling anime or whatever the fuck they sell in Japan, right? Cars and anime. Well, you want to buy oil, right? You need oil for your cars, for your factories, for heating and whatnot. Your yen are useless. You go to Saudi Arabia and they're going to say, very nice yen, but we're not going to take them. We only take dollars because we have an agreement with the Americans. They provide our physical security, and we, for all intents and purposes, ensure their economy by way of insisting that you buy our oil with dollars. And so the Japanese have to go out in the open market with their yen and buy dollars. They buy these dollars, turn around and buy up the oil. And that's what's propping up the value of the dollar. All of these people around the world need dollars to buy oil because it's not just the Japanese, it's everyone, even the Chinese. They all need dollars to buy oil. Okay? This is key. Now, the other thing that happened is that because of this, because of the worldwide need to have dollars to buy oil, the rest of the world quickly settled on the dollar because of the networking effect. They settled on the dollar as the currency of trade. Countries trading with one another would often trade in dollars. They would used the dollar as the medium of measurement for their trades. The dollar became the reserve currency, not merely because of Bretton Woods. Bretton Woods ended in 1971. It was because of the petrodollar, because of the insistence of the major oil producing countries that they would only sell their oil in dollars. By the way, Iran was part of this deal until Shah was overthrown in 1979. Okay, the Americans cut a separate deal with the Shah. The Shah, I mean, they had cut it earlier, I do believe. But anyway, the point of this thing, see, the rest of the world does not need the dollar except insofar as trading oil is concerned. Okay, you got to understand this. And because the rest of the world needs dollars, the rest of the world is willing to sell to the United States so that they can get their dollars, American dollars, so they can buy oil. You see? And the other part of the equation that I forgot to mention, which is going to turn out to be key in just a little bit, is that, see, the Simon's deal, another part of it was that the Saudis had to reinvest all of their dollars into U.S. Treasury bonds. Okay? I mean, think of the deal that Simons was able to cut with the Saudis. Basically, the United States says, you sell your oil to us in dollars, and we will pay you with our dollars, and you take those dollars and buy our treasury bonds. In other words, basically, it's lender financing. It's the what you call it, the Saudis are lending money to the United States in order to buy their oil, and the Saudis accumulate treasury bonds, which is just debt instruments. And in return, the United States gets oil and it gets its dollars back. You see how the trade worked? Okay, it was a very good deal for the United States. And that people don't pay attention to it is kind of remarkable on the one hand. And on the other hand, it makes a lot of sense because, see, people in government, in the US government, don't want people to realize that this is a key deal because then it becomes the obvious pressure point on the United States. If this deal ever ended, the United States would be up Schitt's Creek. And I'll explain it right now. The reason it would be up Schitt's Creek is that, say, I'm Japan and you're the United States and you're selling me some doodad, right? Excuse me, I'm selling you some doodad. I'm selling you anime or cars, right? And you want to buy my anime or my cars, my Toyotas or Hondas or whatever. And so you give me dollars and I take those dollars and buy oil. But see, if the United States, or let me phrase it, if oil is no longer being sold in dollars, I wouldn't take your dollars. I'd say, no, I don't want your dollars. I want whatever is necessary to buy oil. See? I mean, suppose, just for the sake of argument, that cryptocurrency, yeah, let's say Bitcoin was what was necessary to buy oil. Suppose all the oil markets were like, no, we don't take any currency except Bitcoin. This is a hypothetical, and it'll never happen for various reasons, but I'm just saying it to illustrate the point that I want to make. If that were to happen, and people in America said, we have dollars and we want to buy your cars, Mr. Japan man, I would say, no, I'm not going to sell you my cars because what the fuck am I going to do with your fucking dollars? And you'd say, well, you could take our dollars and buy Bitcoin. And they're like, why? And so you'd say, well, okay, well, then we'll take our dollars and buy Bitcoin and then buy your car. And me, Mr. Japan man, I'd say, now we're talking. See? So you would go to the open market to buy Bitcoin. And what would happen? If a lot of people show up with a lot of dollars to buy Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin would go up. Of course, supply and demand. The more of something, the more people on offer to buy something, the more expensive that particular product will happen to be. In this case, if the United States has people in America, you presumably, who live in the United States, and you want to buy a Japanese car, and the Japanese automaker says, we only take Bitcoin, 1 Bitcoin per car. So you take your dollars and you try to go out and buy Bitcoin so you could buy a car. And what happens? If everybody else is doing the exact same thing with their dollars, then the price of Bitcoin goes up. It goes up from, what is it, $35,000 now? It goes up to $40, $50, $60, $70, $100,000. You see? And so the dollars that I have, they're worth less. They buy less. You see? because since the Mr. Japan man who sells cars is unwilling to take dollars because he doesn't need them, because the oil is being sold in Bitcoin exclusively and not dollars as before, well, he doesn't need to take dollars. He takes Bitcoin. And so you, American, with dollars, you have to go and find those Bitcoin to buy the fucking car. And that's how it works. You see? You see the vulnerability? Okay. So at this time, however, the Japanese car manufacturer is happy to take dollars because he needs those dollars to buy oil for now. Okay? That's the reign of the petrodollar. That's why every country in the world needs dollars. That's why every country in the world is happy to take all of this printed money from the United States. Because this printed money, as it is being devalued, well, it still buys fucking oil now, doesn't it? Yeah, because all these countries have this agreement with the United States of selling their oil in dollars and dollars exclusively. And they have this deal whereby all the dollars that they get, they are happy to buy treasury bonds. That is, they finance the U.S. government and the U.S. government deficit and the deficit in the balance of payments. You see how it works? Okay, so let's look at recent developments. Right now, China owns $1.1 trillion in U.S. bonds. Okay. Now, worldwide, the outstanding treasury bonds are about 8 billion. Okay, so it's a substantial portion, roughly 12.5%, 13%. Okay, that's what China owns insofar as U.S. bonds. Okay, 1.1 trillion. Now, there is antagonism of the United States against Russia for, frankly, bullshit reasons. Okay, I mean, the more I think about it, the more I wonder, what the fuck are they enemies with Russia? Russia's goals are very, very simple. They want to develop internally, and they want to repatriate all the Russians that are living outside of Russia because of the collapse of the Soviet Union. All those Russians who are in Belarus, who are in Ukraine, all those Russians in Kazakhstan and Georgia and Azerbaijan and Armenia and all those fucking little countries, right? The Russians just want to repatriate those people because they're a substantial portion, because they're between 20 and 30 million Russians. And Russia in and of itself has what, 144 million Russians? So 20 to 30 million, that's what, a sixth of the population outside of Russia? That's a big fucking deal for them. It's Putin's driving motivator. People don't understand that, especially American people in government. They don't understand that that is a driving motivator for Putin. He wants to reunify the people who were, for all intents and purposes, left outside of Russia when the Soviet Union collapsed. Okay? That's his motivator. He's a nationalist. He is an ethnic nationalist. He is an ethnic Russian and an ethnic nationalist. He wants to make Russia a powerful country again. And he is succeeding, quite frankly. Okay? I mean, he's a very patient man. But anyway, the U.S. has antagonism towards Russia because the United States finds Russia like a great enemy. It's a great enemy to have around because it excuses all kinds of bullshit. And also there's a nostalgia factor. Okay? Insane as that may sound, but it's true. Anyway, there's a growing enmity between the United States and China. Now, we're seeing this as of late. We've been seeing it for a couple of years now, several years, as a matter of fact. But as of late, I'm talking the last couple of weeks, where all of a sudden the virus from Wuhan theory was a conspiracy theory, a alt-right talking point, a insanity, blah, 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 blah. All of a sudden, in fucking Vanity fucking Fair, go check it out, there's a huge article about how, the virus came from China and how the cool cyber kids figured it out. And all of a sudden, the narrative is changing with lightning speed. And everybody's talking about how the virus came from China, came from the lab in China. For 15 months, it was practically verboten to talk about where the virus came from, the COVID virus, or the virus that causes COVID. It was practically verboten, right? I mean, you literally would get deplatformed from social media. You'd get banned. And all of a sudden, in the last 2 weeks, boom, it's okay to talk about it. I mean, what the ever living fuck, but fuck you. But anyway, now you can talk about it. And what's happening is, of course, that my estimation from the get-go was that, yes, this was a leak from the Wuhan virology lab, and more likely than not, it was an accident. Some technician got sloppy. That happens all the time. It's human nature. People make mistakes. Okay, and also just the obvious abductive inference. If you wanted to release a bioweapon, you would not release it in the same fucking city where you developed the fucking bioweapon. Now, would you? Of course not. You'd release it far away so that they could never tie it back to the lab where you created this shit, right? Obviously so. So the notion that this was deliberately released, that's absurd. It was an accident, because if they had wanted to release it, they would have released it far, far away from Wuhan. They would have released it in the States. Yeah, they would have released it in New York City or someplace like that. Someplace nice and crowded where no one will ever know the truth. Yeah. London or Paris or Tokyo or New York City, someplace like that. Not fucking Wuhan. Wuhan is a major city, of course, but almost immediately the Chinese said, oh, yeah, it came from this farmer's market or whatever the fuck, wet market in Wuhan, which was 500 meters away from this fucking virology lab, the world-class virology lab. There are only 3 in the world, like, of that caliber, by the way. 2 in the States and 1 in Wuhan. So, of course, man, it was an accident. But all of a sudden, you're not only hearing that it came from the lab, you're hearing, and notice the propaganda spewing around. It's important that you notice this. They're starting to say that it was deliberate, that the Chinese did it on purpose. I've not, like I said, not for a moment do I think that they did it on purpose, but the propaganda pushing this narrative, what does that tell you? It tells you that the people in power in the swamp in Washington and whatnot, they are amping up their rhetoric and spewing this malicious misinformation that the Chinese deliberately released this shit in order to spark more enmity between the US and China, potentially make this a crisis worth having a war over. Okay? Now, so the growing enmity between the US and China. There is an alliance between Russia and China. I discussed this last week in the weekly webinar, in the State of Play, the webinar called The State of Play. And the alliance between China and Russia is very obvious. They haven't signed a document saying, we are blood brothers forever. But the way that they are acting, the way that they are treating one another, the way that they are going out of their way to always support the other when there is some kerfuffle on the international stage. Putin and Lavrov and Xi have all said that the relationship between Russia and China is at historic highs. And they have all said that they do not see any ceiling to further cooperation between Russia and China. Remember, these fuckers were allied in the 50s. The Chinese Communist Party was, for all intents and purposes, the ugly stepchild of the Russian Communist Party. They viewed it that way. Both sides viewed it that way, okay? And the Russian Communist Party was constantly trying to get on Stalin's good side back in the day, right? But the current leaders are historically very aware, much more aware than American leaders. The current leaders of Russia and China, they both have said independently that the relationship with each other's country is at a historic high, and there is no limit, upper limit, to further cooperation. What the fuck does that tell you? This is a major deal, because Russia has, the third, fourth largest oil reserves on the planet, and not to mention its huge natural gas reserves. It has just about every mineral imaginable. I mean, it is, in terms of natural resources, it's second to none. I mean, as a basket of course, like in specific commodities, other countries have more, but all in one place, Russia wins. Russia is a huge commodities basket. Okay. On the one hand, China has 1.4 billion people, and they are all rabid consumers. And what does that mean? That they're going to need Russian commodities. They're going to need Russian technology. There's already going on a lot of exchanges of Russian technology, especially in computing, okay, and aerospace. and also rocketry, all over the fucking place. Okay, these fuckers they're not just in bed together; they are making sweet love right now. Okay, now here comes the really scary fucking part for the United States. Last week, Russia's Vladimir Putin announced that their sovereign wealth fund will dump dollar assets. They're going to get out of all dollar assets, that is, treasury bonds. Now, the total Russian sovereign wealth fund is, I do believe, about $186 billion. You guys in chat, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe it's $186 billion. It's not more than $200 billion. That's the total sovereign wealth fund, okay? And of that, what percentage is going to be in treasury bonds? Probably very little, okay? So you say, does this affect the treasury bonds? No, it does not. It doesn't affect it at all. It'll be microscopic. Even if they had, say, and this, they won't have this amount, but say that they had a quarter of their sovereign wealth fund in treasury bonds and they dumped it all in one go, $50 billion, that's not a hell of a lot. You know, the treasury market, treasury bond market rather, could absorb that fairly easily. I mean, yeah, there'd be a spike in yields, yeah, momentarily, but it'd be absorbed. It's not that much big of a deal. And so this announcement in and of itself means nothing. But, and this is how I read it, and I don't know if anybody else is saying this, but this is my impression. This is basically a signal that the Chinese can and potentially might do the exact same thing. Dump treasury bonds. Okay? Dump them, just throw them out the fucking window. Okay? Now, if that were to happen, if China were to dump, even if it's a controlled dump of $1.1 trillion in US bonds and demand dollars so that they could, spend them in other shit, okay? Get rid of those dollars and exchange them for other, either commodities or other currencies. This would be extremely damaging to the American economy. I mean, it would be, let me rephrase that. It would be catastrophic, okay? Now, Putin's announcement was very, very interesting because he said that they would continue to invest in other currencies, and he singled out the euro. He said the euro and other currencies. He didn't say the Chinese yuan, okay? He said the euro and other currencies. And by the way, the Russians, because of all this tension with the United States over the years, and the United States constantly threatening to block Russia's use of SWIFT. SWIFT is the system, the interbank system for funds exchange. It's a very necessary subsystem so that you can swap money between banks. Okay, if Russia gets kicked out of SWIFT, Russian banks and Russia itself is essentially cut off from the rest of the banking system of the world. And the United States has been threatening this against Russia for years. And what has Russia been doing? Russia has been building its own system. Okay, they've been building their own system that they are trying to integrate, not just with their own banks internally in Russia, but also they have successfully bridged the gap with Chinese banks, and they are making the effort to open it up to European banks, i.e., it's the Russian version of SWIFT. And the Chinese are all on board with this system because they're supporting their ally, and they understand what Russia is doing, potentially having a replacement system for SWIFT. And what's great from the Chinese point of view is the Russians are doing it, not them. See, because the Chinese banks use SWIFT, and they're making absolutely no effort whatsoever to create a parallel system the way the Russians are doing. And so because of this, the Chinese can say, hey, we're not doing anything. We're just watching as the Russians do it, and the Russians asked us to participate in the system. So of course we will, but of course we're still in SWIFT. You see the game the Chinese are playing? They have perfect deniability while they get on board and support Russia's effort to create a parallel system to SWIFT. And the European banks, of course, they're going to get on SWIFT because on the Russian version of SWIFT because of Nord Stream 2, because of all the gas and all the other commodities that Europe buys from Russia. And it's not just Nord Stream 2. Nord Stream 2 is just an easy shorthand for all of the trade that Europe does with Russia. Europe needs Russia. Europe needs Russia's commodities. And the closer you get to Russia on the map, Poland, Hungary, Slovakia, of course, Ukraine, Belarus, the Baltic states. The closer you get to Russia, the more those countries depend on Russian technology and Russian goodwill. And Russia, Putin just said that they are going to stop using dollars for their sovereign wealth fund, but they are always going to be welcoming of euros and other currencies. And so who is he talking to? He's not talking to the Chinese, because the Chinese already knew the speech. They already knew this was going to happen, because that's the level of coordination that's going on between China and Russia. And so who was the real audience? Europe. Europe, the Europeans, the Eurozone, and also all the secondary currencies like the Hungarian florin and whatnot. All these countries and currencies, these states, these economies, they realize that Russia has no beef with them. It's just with America. They will continue to accept euros. This is key. Okay. So that's what Putin said. Now, could China follow Russia and dump the dollar assets, i.e. treasury bonds? Could China do as Russia does? Yes, most certainly they could. What would happen? Well, if the Chinese were to dump U.S. treasuries, there'd be a run on U.S. treasuries. A lot of other people would suddenly start to dump them too, i.e. sell them. And when a lot of people want to sell something, what happens to the price of that thing? It goes down. Yeah. So if a lot of people all of a sudden started selling treasuries, the price of those treasuries would go down. The Federal Reserve would have no choice but to go out into the open market and buy up those treasuries to support the price. Why would they do so? Because a lot of companies, especially in the United States, have huge holdings in treasury bonds that are necessary for the bank's capitalization requirements. And so if the bonds go down the tubes, those banks will not have enough capital to cover its deposits. They won't have enough capital to survive. And so the Federal Reserve would just have to go out there and print up a lot of fucking money to buy up all those bonds that are being sold by the Chinese, those $1.1 trillion in US bonds, right? And this would hurt the Chinese, because they'd be printing money, and those dollars that the Federal Reserve would print would be worth less. See? There's an old saying. If you owe a bank $1 million and you can't pay, that's your problem. But if you owe a bank $1 billion and you can't pay, that's their problem. See? The Chinese, they have a lot of money. The United States, rather, owes a lot of money to China. So much that it's now China's problem. So if they were to dump these assets, they would certainly hurt themselves. However, if the United States printed to pay up all of these bonds, to buy them up, to give them price support, the dollar's value would be destroyed, and the U.S. economy along with it. Think of it. If all of a sudden all of these bonds are sold out into the open market, and those buyers, they get dollars, what are they going to do with those dollars? They need to park them somewhere. So they're going to buy up commodities. Commodities are where all those dollars are going to go. And so those commodity prices are going to rise precipitously. Okay? I'm talking stratosphere. I'm talking, $200-$300 per barrel of oil. Okay? That kind of insanity. Now, what would happen in the United States? Well, see, if you are earning, say, $3,000 a month, right? And filling your car, you had, 20 gallons, right? And 20 gallons would cost you, what, $60? Well, all of a sudden, because it's $3 per gallon, all of a sudden, that gallon might be, $10 a gallon. All of a sudden, it's $200. And you're filling up your tank, what, 2-3 times a day? A month, rather. And so, all of a sudden, you're not going to have enough money to fill up. And this, of course, the price hike in the price of oil, for instance, would go across the economy, because you see, when you go to the supermarket to buy food, how did that food get there? It didn't just get magicked there. No, somebody brought it there. They brought it there on a truck. And that truck, what did it burn to bring that produce from whatever shipping or distribution center to that supermarket. Oil, gasoline, see? And now that gasoline is way more expensive. And not only gasoline is more expensive, but every fucking commodity is more expensive. Copper, everything, okay? Everything goes up in price if the Chinese dump treasury bonds, okay? And all of a sudden, the American people would not be able to buy shit. Now, remember, I said before at the beginning, Russia has the fourth or fifth largest oil reserves in the world. Okay, there was actually a time when OPEC was first forming that they invited Russia to join it because, after all, Russia was one of the biggest oil producers in the world at the time, and among the largest reserves in the world at the time. And Russia, the Soviet Union at the time, decided not to. If they had, they would have been sitting pretty. But okay, well, that's spilt milk. For another story. The point I'm trying to make here is that, see, the Russians are acting in concert with the Chinese. The Americans and the Chinese are getting into a kerfuffle. The American establishment is positioning China as the bad guy. The Chinese are not doing themselves any favors because they're starting to get a little bit hysterical. You've seen there's some statement recently about some bullshit that something would be like tantamount to nuclear war or some shit like that. I mean, some kind of hysteria on China's side. I mean, never forget, hysteria runs both ways. Okay, it's not just like one side is like the cool customer and the other side is all hysterical. No, hysteria, there's enough to go around. Okay, so the Chinese, right? They are looking at the situation and they could be thinking to themselves, you know something? If we were to dump the dollar, just dump it, dump all these treasury bonds, take all these dollars that we sell these treasury bonds for and go out and buy ourselves commodities, and get sitting pretty with commodities, right? Or some other currency like the euro, for instance, use the euro as the global reserve currency. Because the Chinese, they're not stupid. They don't want the yuan to be the reserve currency because they've seen what happened to the British Empire and what happened to the American Empire. They're not stupid. They realize that having your currency be the reserve currency is a headache not worth having. And the fact that the Russians, that Putin, emphasized the euros, it leads me to conclude, okay, and this is just tea leaf reading on my part, but it leads me to conclude that they're going to position the euro as the reserve currency, both the Chinese and the Russians. And it would be ideal for them. They position the euro as the reserve currency. And so they exit their American position and they get into the Eurozone, not just the euro as money, but also euro bonds. And they'd give a lot of price support to the European bond market. And the Europeans would love that shit. And so it would just make more sense for the Chinese to do that, and they would hurt themselves a little bit, but not that much. But insofar as the United States is concerned, it would be a devastating blow. It would be a catastrophic blow. And if Russia were to say that they will not sell any oil except in euros, that would be a big fucking deal, because they haven't said that yet. The Russians are saying that they are not going to have any dollar assets in their sovereign wealth fund. But they're basically making the move that eventually they're going to get rid of the dollar as the currency to buy their oil. And if that happens, well, then all of a sudden the euro would be the belle of the ball and the United States would be up shit's creek. And remember when I told you in a previous webinar about the different generations of warfare, right? And that a lot of people are saying that we're in a fifth generation warfare where it's not on the battlefield. It's like in everything. It's in economics. It's in propaganda. It's in the social media. It's like that kind of warfare, right? Across the board. It's not even particularly violent per se, right? It's more of jockeying for a position using all the tools at your disposal, right? Now, if the Chinese were to dump U.S. treasury bonds and go into the euro and euro bonds in a big way, and second Russia's move to the euro to sell its oil, America would be crippled. It would be a shattering blow. It would demolish the American economy because no one would sell the United States any of the goods that it needs. And keep in mind, the United States' manufacturing base is completely hollowed out. There's still manufacturing going on in the United States, but nowhere near what it used to be. And if the United States is shut out of global trade because nobody wants to take American dollars because they don't need to take American dollars, what are American consumers going to do? They're not going to be able to buy food. They're not going to be able to buy oil. They're not going to, and because of the oil, there's not going to have heating or electricity. Consumer goods manufactured in other countries, like in Japan, in Korea, in Vietnam, even next door, like in Honduras and Peru, where there's all kinds of clothing manufacturers are there, right? Well, all that would go out the window if all of a sudden the euro, the Chinese and the Russians maneuver so that the euro becomes the reserve currency. And this would be a bloodless way for the Chinese to do that. And how is the United States going to go to war with China, go to war with like a shooting war against China, if China just makes this economic move? I mean, most people wouldn't even understand the move, okay? So you see the vulnerability of the Americans, and you see how the Chinese, they could actually do this, and they could actually win a war against America without firing a shot by just absolutely demolishing the American economy. All of a sudden in the United States, you would have shortages of every consumer good you can think of. You know, TVs, computers, smartphones, everything. Nobody would want to sell because the rest of the world doesn't need dollars. The only people who would need dollars are those still buying oil from Saudi Arabia and the OPEC cartel. But if Russia makes that move to the euro, and the Russians set up their parallel SWIFT system, the Russian version of SWIFT, and if the Chinese start using that system and insisting that everybody uses euros to buy their shit, people would rapidly turn to the euro. They'd rapidly turn to the euro and get rid of their dollars. And they would tell Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, we are not going to fucking, get dollars. Or it could be that Saudi Arabia and the OPEC countries continue to be good little servants to America and continue to sell their oil in dollars, but the price of that oil hyperinflates. And so what happens is, of course, people with euros just spot trade the dollars. The day of the trade, they cash in their euros and buy, barrelfuls of dollars. You see how it could happen? And you see the issue of a war, a Chinese attack on the American system, an attack on America and the American people in a way that leaves no fingerprints. Because it's not like a nuclear bomb that blew up, a missile that flew across the oceans and fell on top of San Francisco or Houston or Miami or Chicago or New York. No, it's just getting rid of some bonds, just selling some bonds and you're done. You see? And so my thinking is that the United States seems to be gearing up for a war with China, but they don't know how vulnerable they actually are. And the Chinese know how vulnerable they actually are. Because, see, if Vladimir Putin made the statement last week that the Sovereign Wealth Fund is dumping dollar assets, he talked about it with Xi, or perhaps not he himself, but one of his minions talked to the appropriate Chinese minion on the other side and tell him that he was going to say this. Okay, this didn't just fucking happen. These people don't just fucking say shit. They don't fly off the handle and say whatever foolishness comes into their head. Any move they make, they've thought about it 6 ways to Sunday. These fuckers, China and Russia. And you got to admire them because they're playing chess at an incredibly high level and they're winning. They're basically saying, it seems to me, and maybe I'm just reading way too much into it, but this is my thinking. They are saying to Americans that we're going to go to war with you, but it's going to be strictly economic. We're not going to fire a weapon. We're not even going to shoot one solitary round at you. We're just going to do it economically. and we're going to wipe you out. The American propaganda machine is pushing for this war with China. You wait how it's going to happen in just a week or two more. They're going to say that this was a deliberate bio weapons leak. Okay. That it was deliberate. Okay. Now, see, if if you and I are in an accident, I crash your car by accident, right? I crash my car into yours. Yeah, it's an accident. You might yell at me a little bit, and say, man, your insurance company better pay up, motherfucker, right? But that's very different than if I hop in my car and deliberately ram your car with my car with intent to harm. That's way different, of course. That's war, right? You get out of your car and you're not asking for my insurance information. You're putting up your fist and taking a swing at me, right? Yeah, of course. If the American propaganda arm now starts saying that this was a deliberate bioweapons leak, then you know where this is going. The Americans want a war, and they're manufacturing an excuse to go to war. And by the way, it wouldn't be the first time that the United States has manufactured an incident to go to war. Because like I said, I have no doubt in my mind that this was an accidental leak for the reasons I explained before. But the United States in the past has used incidents to go to war with countries. Like, for instance, the USS Maine. That never happened. Okay. The Gulf of Tonkin resolution, which started the Vietnam War, that incident never happened, literally never happened. Okay. The Vietnamese were like, what the fuck are you talking about? We didn't have any people there. We didn't do anything. Okay. They just made it up. This, weapons of mass destruction for the invasion of Iraq. Oh, yeah. Saddam, he did 9/11. He's got weapons of mass destruction. And Saddam Hussein had absolutely nothing to do with the people who blew up or brought down the Twin Towers and crashed into the Pentagon, right? He had absolutely nothing to do with them, and he did not have weapons of mass destruction of any sort whatsoever. What he was doing, and which everyone at the time realized, and I remember I knew it at the time, was that he was just bluffing for the sake of scaring off the Iranians because he was militarily weak, and he didn't want the Iranians to take advantage of his weakness in order to take over some oil-producing regions that Iraq had. That's why he was sort of like feigning that he had weapons of mass destruction, biological weapons and shit like that. And of course he didn't. And everybody at the time knew it. Okay. And well, anyway, that was the reason to go to war in that particular situation. So you think that they're not going to make up the excuse that China deliberately released this pathogen, deliberately trying to hurt the global economy? Of course not. They're not going to have any qualms about it. And so you pay attention closely to the mainstream media. When they start saying that this was deliberate, then you know. When you start seeing on social media that a lot of people are like, rah, rah, let's go to war with these Chinese, they deliberately released this COVID, chances are a lot of them are like going to be just regular people saying this shit, but the origin of it is going to be propaganda. I've seen it on my Telegram channel and on my YouTube videos that there's occasionally some guy who writes too coherently with no spelling mistakes and grammar mistakes, and he's advocating for radical shit. Okay, like I think it was on Telegram just this morning, as a matter of fact. There was some guy advocating for basically insurrection. Or actually, wait, let me find it real quick. Well, no, I'm not going to find it real quick now because it would take me a while. Or maybe I can, but it was really fucking notorious. I mean, I was like reading it and I'm like, this fucker is a Fed. This is a Fed post. This is some Fed who is trying to get people riled up, and I discounted it, of course. I thought it was funny, but I've seen a lot of that shit going on all over the fucking place. Hang on. I'll read it to you because it's right here in my comment section. In my comment section in my before last post, there was this kid who posted something called The Difference Between the Right and the Left. And I liked the video so much that I posted it on my community tab on my CRP YouTube channel. And you go to the comment section. There's a guy called Henrik who said, maybe, but angry young man is not what this nation need. Okay. Notice the grammar mistakes, okay? Uh, the first guy, a guy called Jared, said, "That's what this nation has. I'm just waiting for a leader so I can join a death squad, kill all leftists." And then another guy called Frogman says, "I want a civil war so I can massacre my fellow citizen. Too bad that couldn't happen in this age." That guy, Frogman, is probably just being facetious. Um, and then Jared says, um, Frogman, you'll get to a point where the degeneracy is more than you can take, then you'll agree with me. I thought the same as you for a long time. Jared is a Fed. No question. I'm sorry. Okay? Jared is a Fed, or he's talking exactly like a Fed would talk. He's inciting revolution. I actually jumped into this conversation. I said later, anyone advocating for insurrection is either a Fed or a fool. Okay? But yeah, and you see that. You see that in the web. There are lots of, especially like influential social media personalities you see in their comment section, that there's like this push, okay? And a lot of people sort of like take that push and assume, oh, other people think that way, and so they follow along, follow the leader kind of thing. So anyway, I want you to pay attention over the next couple of weeks about this issue of the Chinese did this deliberately. When people are saying that and they're just taking it at face value, they're not even not at face value, rather, they're just accepting it without any kind of pushback. That's when you know that they're gearing up for a war. Okay? Because like I said, if somebody causes an accident, crashes your car by accident, you get upset, but it's not the end of the world. If somebody deliberately crashes their car into yours, you get out of your car and start fighting them. And so the fact that they're pushing this narrative now leads me to conclude that they want to go to war with China. And that's why I did the last video. And the signs from Russia are that the Chinese and the Russians are going to stop using the dollar and use the euro in its place as the reserve currency. And that would cause a cataclysmic crisis in the United States. And it would be a death blow to the American economy without firing a shot. It would be one of the greatest military triumphs without fielding a single soldier. It would really knock out the United States, especially now that the United States is in such a weakened state. Okay? So, yeah, that's what I think. And that's why I think it's very important for you to understand the whole history of the petrodollar and how the system has worked up until now. And you who are listening and who know a lot about this, you're going to point out a lot of issues that I'm kind of ignoring. For instance, the United States could gear up its own oil production, and therefore it would need to import oil, and therefore it wouldn't matter if other countries don't accept the dollar. Yeah, sure, yes, but that would, number one, it would take time to gear up the oil in the United States. But number two, it's not the oil that really matters. It's all the consumer products and also industrial products that are imported to the United States that are not manufactured in the United States. No iPhone is manufactured in the United States. Look at the fucking package. It says so right there on the package. Designed in California, manufactured in China. See, that's all you need to know. And that goes across the board with so many consumer goods. It also goes across the board insofar as food is concerned. A lot of foodstuffs are imported because people want to have grapes year round and shit like that. See? And so because of that, the American agricultural system is set up so that a lot of food is being imported. And if foreigners don't accept dollars anymore because China crashed the dollar by dumping its dollar assets, God knows what will happen to people in the United States. They won't be fed. There won't be enough food for the people in the United States. Okay, and maybe this is all apocalyptic nonsense. I'm going to wind down my presentation so I can take your questions because I'm really interested in what you guys have to say about all this. But you got to understand that the United States is in an incredibly fragile situation right now, and it doesn't even realize it. And I think that the Chinese and the Russians, most especially, they know exactly how fragile America is. And I think that they're getting ready to give the United States a death blow, and it's going to be the currency. I think the currency is what they're going to use to really crucify America. I could be completely wrong, and you guys know I've been completely wrong lots of times before. So we'll just have to wait and see how things go over the next 18 to 30 months. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be pretty. Okay. Okay. So let me take questions. Oops. Have you guys been seeing me this whole time, or did you see my presentation? Because now I'm looking at it and like you guys could see my camera. Okay. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. Let me just invite you guys on. I'm going to post in the chat the link to join. Mm-hmm. Okay. Thanks, dog. Yeah, I don't know what happened there because I flipped over to the page where I had the thing, and all of a sudden it was Okay, RM, how's it going? Oops, RM disappeared. Let's see.
Hello,
Italo,
guys.
Italo, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me, coach?
Yeah, I hear you fine. What's up?
Yes, I hope you're good. I hope you're very good. Yes, last week I couldn't get in here. Sorry.
That's okay.
Coach, I have a question, and I wanted to ask this so many weeks ago, but this is a perfect webinar to ask it.
Sure.
So, yes, I'm living in Peru, and today are the elections. I don't know if the communist is going to win. If he wins, I'm fucked. I'm fucked. So I'm planning to see where I could move. So I want to know what will happen to economies like Ecuador, who replace their own currency with US dollars. What will happen to them if when the dollar crashes, and also to Argentina?
They'll all be fucked. Everybody's going to be scrambling for euros. Look, this is a big assumption on my part, okay? But it seems logical, okay? Because the Americans and the Russians and the Chinese at this point, they hate America. They really do. They're like, fuck these fuckers. And they are sick of having to toe the American line. And the Americans have bullied them for so long that they're just sick of it, okay?
And yeah, it's now revenge time for them.
Personally, I think it's justified, okay? Also, I think that what really drives them up the wall is the incoherence of American policy. I mean, like, just last month, right? Biden calls Putin a killer, then begs him for a summit, and then the next day imposes sanctions. It's like, what the fuck? What the fuck do you want, right? And like Biden is begging for a summit, and yet at the same time throwing all these punitive measures and insulting Putin. What the fuck? And I think that that's the thing that drives them around the bend, because these guys in China and Russia, they're very systematic and they're very serious people. Okay, they know what the fuck they're doing, and they are cognizant of the responsibility that they have. But the American leadership acts like they're fucking children. Okay, so to go back to your question, what would happen to countries like Ecuador or like Peru, whose currency either is the dollar or depends very heavily on the dollar? Panama, same thing, for instance. Well, if that were the case, then they're fucked. Now, aren't they? It's simple as that. They'd be completely fucked, and they'd have to come up with their own currency. Okay, and more likely than not. See, here's another thing that you got to understand. The Europeans are allied to the United States so long as it's in their best interest. If all of a sudden everybody wants euro bonds and euros, if the euro replaces the dollar as the reserve currency, then Europeans would be able to buy all kinds of shit around the world because they need to inject liquidity, euro liquidity, into the rest of the world economy. And that would benefit them materially. Their standard of living would rise quite a bit, especially in the poorer countries of Europe, Spain, Portugal, Italy, Greece. And so because of this, they would be happy for the euro to replace the dollar as the reserve currency. Okay. And so again, I've strayed from your original question, but
no, it's okay.
Yeah, the
It's
bottom line is
that point.
yeah, the countries that depend on the dollar would be absolutely fucked. I mean, just ass raped. Just ass raped by a fucking train. Okay, that's how bad it would fucking be. Okay, because think about it. If all of a sudden the currency that you're using just inflates away and you can't buy shit with it. I mean, Peru imports oil. It produces oil, yes, but it imports a lot more oil. Peru imports a lot of things that it needs and it has dollars to import all those things. If the dollars it has all of a sudden become worthless, Peru is fucked. Okay, it's as simple as that. There are some countries like Chile, for instance, that export a lot of commodities, and those commodities can be fairly easily repriced in euros, and so those countries would be okay, but Peru would be hurt badly. Ecuador would be hurt badly, and so I think it would be a disaster. Okay, yeah.
Well, it's the Ragnarok. Yeah. No. I just wanted to know that. I don't know what will be a system where the euro will dominate. I hope Europe gets less degenerate. I think this is going to be like a wake-up call to Americans and their arrogance as well. And yeah, let's see what happens. But I'm glad to keep watching your shows, and I don't know what will happen today. Hope the communist doesn't win here.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk next week about what happened in Peru with the election. Yeah, I'm really kind of curious about it. So anyway, great talking to you, Ela. You take it easy.
Nice, Gonzalo. Goodbye.
Bye. Brian, how's it going? You there?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine. What's on your mind?
I actually have a question for you. I'm very interested to see how this conflict will escalate on the American side. This whole, I guess, saber rattling thing just makes me think that it scares me to the fact that maybe America will be trying enough to dumb enough to try and fight a war.
Yeah. I'm thinking this whole presentation. I've been thinking about it from the point of view of the Chinese. What would I do if I were like the Chinese commander? And see, fuck over the American economy, but not invade Taiwan would be perfect. See, because I fuck over the American economy, but I refrain from invading Taiwan so the Americans don't have a justification to go to war. See? And they start saying that the Wuhan virus was all Chinese, and I'm like, finally I go like, yes, we did it by accident. It was a huge mistake, and we tried everything possible to stop it and whatnot. I mean, I fess up. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
From a tactical point of view, to fess up and beg for forgiveness, for the world's forgiveness, and say that you'll pay out money to people, okay? And yeah, you pay it, but so what? You don't fight a war because you don't want to go to war. You want to win without hurting yourself, because in any war, no matter how quick or limited, you always incur damage, even if you win. And so what you want to do is avoid a war. But how do you avoid a war in this situation? You crash the American economy. I think that would be like the ideal solution. I mean, like I said, I've been thinking about this from the point of view of the Chinese. But what do you think?
Hold up. Can you still hear me now?
I hear you fine.
Personally, I think it's like, if America were to go to war with China, it would, if it were like a punitive expedition, like nothing boots on the ground, the Americans could probably win. But it would be a Pyrrhic victory at best, because we'd probably have our Navy wiped out. I just don't think it will work out in the long term. So I completely see what you're saying.
Yeah. The United States is in a very precarious position, and it's been made more precarious by the poor decisions and the poor strategy or the non-strategy of its leadership. So we got to see what happens, man. But you're in the States, right? Which state which city are you in?
I'm just going to say I'm somewhere in the Southeast.
Okay, let me ask you, are they talking more and more about, all right, first of all, are they all of a sudden doing this 180 about like, oh yeah, the virus came from the Wuhan lab?
I think it's really funny because a couple weeks ago, I'd be looked at like I take lithium for my schizophrenia. But now it's like, oh,
everybody's saying it came from the Wuhan lab, right?
Yeah. It's like, oh, really?
Are you saying it was an accident or deliberate?
At this point, they haven't really said anything, but I assume if they try and start saying it's deliberate, I think you'll be right.
Then you'll know that they're gearing up for a war. They're gearing up for a war, and I think that the Russians and the Chinese, they know too, and they're going to be very sensitive to that, and they'll pull the trigger if the Americans start saying it was deliberate. That's my thinking, because like I was reading
an article in the Wall Street Journal today, and it was actually talking about how Putin was saying that he wanted to improve relations with the U.S. And initially I thought, oh, that's maybe because he wants to like some kind of détente. But the more I think about it, it's like they're trying to make it look like they were reaching out, so that way they can seem like they're not the aggressors in the situation.
Yeah. Yeah, you're talking about aggressive towards Russia or aggressive towards China?
Just that alliance you're talking about.
Yeah. No, you got to keep in mind something else that's going on in the United States that I've noticed is that the Americans, the American experts, insist that the relationship between Russia and China is nowhere near as close as it is, and that it's very fragile and they might fall apart at any moment. That's wishful thinking. That's just, it's just wishful thinking. Because, like I said in the state of play of last week, see, the Chinese have been working the Russians for a long fucking time, and the Russians are finally realizing, you know something? We don't need the West. This Chinese chick, she's hot enough, and she's got money, and so let's go with her. And I think that the Russians and the Chinese, and look, here's something you have to understand. When people say how something is, you have to take them at their word. Okay, you can't be like pretending that they're lying or saying shit that is not true. Okay, when Putin says that, or Lavrov says that there is no upper limit to the cooperation between China and Russia, you got to take him at his fucking word. Why would he lie? I mean, he's smart enough to say something completely innocuous, but something that forceful of saying that there is no upper limit to Chinese-Russian cooperation. Holy fucking shit. Okay? But anyway, the Americans,
they're thinking that they'll repeat the Sino-Soviet split. And like the Sino-Soviet split was actually very violent, but I don't see that repeating because they're both basically on the same page now.
Yeah, exactly. It was extremely violent. It had all kinds of shit to do with the whole communist ideology shit, and also the whole border issue shit. But that border is problems. The border problems that they have been solved, and neither the Chinese nor the Russians have any interest whatsoever in bringing that up, because now that it's solved, perhaps one side or another is grumbling about this or that, but they see the strategic opportunity of a strong relationship between the two of them. So any kind of piddly ass little border dispute is trivial as far as they're concerned in the long term. Okay. And also they recognize that the United States is behaving in such an antagonistic way towards both Russia and China that it pays them to ignore any difference the Russians and the Chinese might have in order to work the American problem together. See? And that's the thing, because when you talk about how Nixon split the Soviets and the Chinese, right? But that had to do with, first of all, they'd already split because of inside baseball Communist Party shit,
like Nikita Khrushchev and the secret speech.
Yeah, no. It was before. It was after that. There was a moment that they almost went to nuclear war over their border.
Yeah, it was. It was over some island in like a river somewhere, and they just like
it's that bullshit, But but the point is that there's no crack in the Russian-Chinese relationship at this time where you could stick a wedge in, and both the Chinese and the Russians view America antagonistically, which was not the case back in the day. Back in the day, they looked at America as the fucking capitalist pig, but the United States wasn't trying to fuck with Russia or destabilize its leadership as it's trying to do today, or blame China for all its ills like it's doing today. And so, yeah, it was a completely different thing. So, well, we'll see how it goes, man. It's going to be an interesting next few months. Like I said, the next 18
yeah,
to
I'm
30.
interested to see how this escalates.
Yeah. So take it easy, Brian. Great talking to you.
Great talking to you too.
RM, are you there?
Yes, this time. Sorry for the
No problem.
mishap.
It happens, man. How's it going?
It's going well. So, connecting today's webinar to last week's, US could enforce these sanctions all the time because they were supposedly the biggest market also, as well as.
Yeah.
So how is it going to change with that? Because if they lose, so maybe that's why they are very cautious about China appearing as the biggest market. So they want to keep this leverage of having sanctions over the other countries.
What's your question specifically? Can you rephrase it, please?
So you were saying that the US was, for no reason, they are interested in being the first market. I'm saying that probably it's not for no reason, because if they are not the biggest market, they're going to lose this leverage over the other countries. They cannot impose sanctions over the countries. Okay, maybe I say that from Iranian news perspective. They say that you can impose these sanctions because no other country wants to mess up their relationship with US because they are the biggest market. They are the purchaser of the goods from other countries.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's a valid reason that US wants to beat China in being the biggest market.
Perhaps, but the thing is, see, if China makes nobody want to have US dollars, if China dumps its US assets and makes the United States print to shore up the price of bonds, then what'll happen is that nobody will want to sell to the United States because they'll be getting worthless currency. You see what I mean? It won't matter that the United States is the biggest market in the world. If it's paying something that people consider worthless or that will soon be worthless, then nobody's going to sell to it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the key issue. See, if you are, trade depends on you getting something from the other that you value. If you are getting a currency that nobody's valuing and that is decaying on the daily, then you're not going to want to do business with that group or person, no matter how large that market might happen to be. So yeah, that's my thinking at this point. Yeah.
So right now, you cannot buy oil with anything else other than US dollar.
Well, no, there are markets, relatively small markets, where you can buy in other currencies, but the dominant market is in dollars.
But how big is that? Less than 10%? Because I've been reading this in the news since I was 10 or 12. Like, Iran wanted to have a market like doing business with their currency or Russian currency, whatever it is, and they never succeeded. Also, changing the SWIFT because they were trying to force like something.
Are you in Iran?
No, I'm not. I'm in US, but I left Iran 6-7 years ago. So
okay.
So I've been in the news coming from Iranian perspective and so on, and following the Iranian news. So after the sanctions and Trump pulling out of the deal they had, they were trying to replace SWIFT, but they couldn't. But Iran was too small of a game player. No one cared about them anymore. So do you think this time it can work?
Well, you see, if Iran, it's very clear that China and Russia are making nice with Iran. They're doing a lot of deals with Iran, and they are getting Iranian oil. Now, Saudi Arabia is also making nice with Iran because Iran has been supporting the war in Yemen, and the Saudis are losing that war. Or perhaps not losing it per se, but it's just a stalemate. It's going nowhere. It's just being a drain.
They don't see any point in that anymore.
Yeah, there's no point in it. So there's nothing you want anymore. So, so the Saudis are talking to the Iranians very quietly out in Vienna, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if Iran joins up with Russia and China in some sort of arrangement, to just sell the oil in some other currency, I mean, it could be Russian rubles, but I don't think many people would really trust the Russian ruble long term. And so the European currency, the euro, that might be the ideal replacement currency, because the Chinese clearly do not want the yuan to be the reserve currency, because they have gone out of their way to remove speculation of the yuan as a reserve currency. They're happy to use other people's currency, because of course what they can do is that if the yuan is not the reserve currency, they can easily devalue it whenever they want to make their economy more competitive. And so, but if the yuan is the reserve currency, all of a sudden, what happens with the reserve currency status is that, see, you fall what's called the Triffin dilemma. And you should look it up. It's Robert Triffin, Triffin. Robert Triffin was a Belgian-American economist, and he pointed out that if you are a country with the reserve currency, your short-term economic interests do not align with your long-term economic interests, because your short-term interest by having the reserve currency is that everybody wants your currency. So all the goods from around the world are cheap. So you're going to go out and buy those cheap goods, and you're going to have an imbalance of payment. You're going to spend more than you bring in. And short term, you're going to feel great. Long term, it's going to hollow out your country. And that's the Triffin dilemma. And it was identified in the 1960s. And we're basically living it, because the United States has hollowed out its industrial base because it's the reserve currency. And I think the Chinese understand the Triffin dilemma in a way that the Americans never did. And they've decided, we're never going to fall for that trap. We are never going to allow our currency to be the reserve currency. But I think that they might be thinking that if they put the euro as the reserve currency, and the Russians and the Iranians say, we'll sell oil in euros, then all of a sudden a lot of good things happen, because it'll be great for the European economies. And the European bureaucrats who are trying to hold on to power in Europe and trying to prevent the breakup of Europe, which is coming closer every day, if all of a sudden the euro becomes the currency of choice, the reserve currency, there's going to be a demand for euros, and therefore goods and services will be cheap for Europeans. And that will fix up the economies of the European countries, especially the weaker countries. And because of that, they'll improve their standard of living. So it'll be good for the Europeans. It'll be good for the Russians and the Iranians, because they'll be able to sell their oil in euros and have a fluid market. And this is, of course, assuming that the Russians' parallel SWIFT system is up and operational, which the Russians have set it up, and they probably just need a good excuse to start running it. And so my thinking is that it could be that the Eurozone, the euro currency rather, becomes the reserve currency. And it would solve a lot of problems for a lot of different people, and it would hurt the Americans, which I think at this point the Chinese and the Russians actively want. They actively want to help. They actively want to hurt the Americans. I think that the Russians and the Chinese are out and out enemies of America, and they're just waiting for the good opportunity to stick it in. Okay, they're just waiting for something that can really hurt them. Yeah,
that's
for
the sake of it, or for good reasons that you talked about, I guess.
Well, good reasons, and also it comes to a point where the reasons don't matter anymore. You just despise somebody that much that you're like, let's just fuck them over.
It's just human nature, huh?
Yeah, so, exactly.
Europeans don't care about the long-term downsides of being euro being a currency of reserve. The Triffin dilemma you talked about, or
why are drug addicts drug addicts?
Feels good now.
Exactly. Okay. And sometimes it feels so good now that you're like, just this one time. Why do people become addicted to drugs? Why do people get fat? Yeah, because it just feels good. It feels good. And you're just like, okay, just this one time. And this one time becomes 100 times, 1,000 times. It's human nature. You know,
Fair enough.
never fight human nature. You know, no. Anyway, RM, great talking to you, man. Hope to see
Thank
you next
you.
week. Take it
See you.
easy. Greg, how's it going?
Hey, Coach, how you doing?
Pretty good. Pretty good. And yourself?
Good. I really enjoy these, and I appreciate all the efforts you put into them. So,
No, my pleasure. My pleasure. What's on your mind, my man?
so I agree with most of your assessment and your analysis. I've been reading a lot of. It's due out in August, but Ray Dalio's Changing World Order.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that on LinkedIn. I mean, he's basically saying what you are saying, which is that we are in store for a major shift.
Yeah.
Global power structure, and this is
Greg, forget about the evidence. Don't you kind of like feel it in the air?
Yes, but here's my question to you, and I think I have a different perspective, and I think it really comes down to the two questions of what is this pandemic and what does the Joe Biden presidency represent? And I would argue that what we are doing now is there is a managed effort to transition into a post-American world in order to avert conflict with China.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, in other words, I just can't, and I think historically the media has served as this kind of apparatus, but I just can't, because of the internal politics of it, you know, in other words, the US media has looked so atrocious throughout this pandemic, deliberately taking the opposite position just to stick it up to Trump's ass. You know, they called the vaccine the Fauci ouchie. I mean, I can't imagine them doubling down and then all of a sudden now going to the other extreme and saying that the Chinese deliberately released, because it fundamentally
You're seeing it in real time.
Well, I think I've seen different sources start to pivot, but
start to pivot, man. I mean, it's a 180 pivot. You know, it's not even, you know, a month ago you said that this was from a Chinese lab.
Mm-hmm.
You would be deplatformed. People were deplatformed.
Conspiracy theories, yeah. But my question is, do you think that there is any chance that, you know, I'm just talking about responsible elite in the world right now who see an untenable position in the world where you have got governments that are just saturated with debt. You know, if the American system goes down, it cascades throughout the entire world. And this time, as many people have said, you know, that's what Dalio's point is, that the U.S. is reaching the end of its long-term debt cycle. You can't just print your way out of this. You can't just lower rates. It requires a complete change of the guard. Do you think there's any chance that people that are running the world, so to speak, or I would say pushing it in a certain direction, are saying, look, we've got to just transition to something else?
No, I don't think so. I think that they're just looking at their short-term interests and their personal, selfish best interests. You know, you ever heard the expression IBG, YBG?
Yes.
I'll be gone, you'll be gone.
Right.
Okay. It's what happens in a lot of corporations, that they do things that are stupid, that hurt the corporations long term, but the executives say, hey, dude, IBG, YBG, I'll be gone, you'll be gone when the negative effects arise of this particular policy.
Right.
And so you got that kind of people leading the country. I mean, Joe Biden, he's not going to last very long. He is definitely IBG, YBG, right? And the other people, they're all selfish pricks. They don't give a fuck about America long term. They hate America in many cases. So, dude, you know, I mean, look, if I sound flippant, okay, it took me a long time to get here because I have enormous affection for the United States, and it just breaks my heart to see how America is just falling apart.
Oh, I think you're correct.
Led by horrible people, horrible fucking people.
And I think you're. I mean, what Dalio's point is that we are very much in a 1920s predicament where the future, the next 10, 20, 30 years, we can't even fathom the level of catastrophe that we're in store for. So I think we're saying the same thing. I agree with your fundamental assessment of how the doom that we are facing, but I think I'm just seeing it in a little bit different way. But I appreciate the time and.
No, my pleasure, man. It's great having you on.
Alrighty, I'll catch you later. Thank you.
Take it easy. Let me bring on Chris O. You there?
Yes, hi, Coach.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. I'm actually quite surprised. I was expecting you to do the seminar from the Red Square. What happened to your trip?
Oh, no, I had to be postponed. I was hoping to be in Red Square, but it had to be postponed. But yeah, but I'll be going soon. So anyway, what's on your mind? Hopefully, by the way, I'll be leaving on the 14th, next Monday. But yeah, that fingers crossed. I mean, I really want to go, but certain things happened here that obliged me to stay. So what's on your mind, my man?
I actually have two quite minor questions. They're not so geopolitical. The first one regarding the Chinese diaspora living outside of China. If there were a hot war, what would be, the relationship, the race relationships, the economic relations of all these Chinese nationals living abroad? How would they be treated?
I have no idea. I mean, frankly, I think it would be wise to treat them as potentially enemy agents. Okay. Because they probably are, because a lot of them, so many have been, but I have no idea. That's just way beyond my, not pay grade, but just, I just wouldn't know. I would not know, I mean, anything could happen. Okay. So yeah.
Okay. And the second question is, how long do you think it would take for the potential war, economic or hot war, to kind of erase out of the memory, the whole COVID situation, to bury the blame and the media hypocrisy and the economic?
I don't understand your question.
Could the war be used somehow to cover up all the bullshit that's been going on over the year and a half in terms of the lockdowns?
Oh, absolutely. It'll definitely be used for that. Yeah, I mean, like, look. See, I'm an incompetent leader in the United States or Europe, right? I'm some imbecile who is like lockdowns for everyone, jabs for everyone, blah blah, right? And a lot of political pressure, negative political pressure, is coming at me. Out in Germany, they just did a big study, and they were saying, lockdowns do absolutely nothing. Okay, I mean, and it was like some university out in Munich, I think it was, that did the study, and it was like gold-plated, like really like serious scientists and statisticians, and they were like, this COVID lockdown was a complete and utter fucking waste of time. And this isn't like the first study. And so people are realizing the whole lockdown and masks and all this is all bullshit. And so a lot of political pressure would fall on me, the European or American politician, right? And everyone would be saying like, CRP, you told us lockdowns, you told us masks, and look, it was useless, blah, blah, blah. And so what do I say? I say, oh, look, the Chinese did it. Oh, it was they released this. It was from their lab. And they deliberately spread this. Yeah, that's what I say. And it makes everybody forget. Sure, because it's human nature, and all. I mean, it's like you with a child. You ever been in front of a little infant, a crying infant, like a child that's say 6 months old or something like that, right? I mean, they're crying, and what do? You don't try to soothe them. You just shake a little noisemaker, a little doodad, anything, some little toy, and all of a sudden they forget all about why they were crying, and they're like, oh, look at that little doggy, or whatever the fuck, I mean, that's how children are, and that's how crowds are. Okay. And so, yeah, I think that it would be to the politician's best interest to distract from responsibility by blaming it all on China. Sure. And it potentially going to war with China. And like I said in the presentation, I do not believe that the Chinese did this deliberately. It doesn't make any sense. If they wanted to do it deliberately, they wouldn't have released it in fucking Wuhan. They'd release it far away, And so, yeah, that's my thinking at this point. And like I said, how can I put it? Human nature doesn't change, and nobody likes taking the blame for their bad decisions. I mean, let me ask you, Chris, have you made bad decisions in your life?
Yes, sir.
And do you like admitting it?
Rarely.
No, you never like admitting it. I mean, sometimes, you even in the worst decisions, when it's just you alone with your pillow, right? You'll pretend like, yes, I made this bad decision, but it really wasn't my fault, when we know it was your fault, right? Because that's human nature. Okay. So they're going to try to blame this on China so as to distract.
I mean, it's not so much that I don't like to admit the bad decision. I just try to kind of somehow change the logic to see the good in it and say, oh, actually, there's some good to it. So whether it's, Build Back Better or some other stuff, there might be that push. Thanks a lot, Coach, and I wish you a good trip as soon as possible.
No, thank you very much. Anything else on your mind, Chris?
A lot of things, but there's a row of people, so next time.
No. Hit me up. That's perfectly fine.
Well, I agree. I disagree with you on two issues.
Now we're talking.
I disagree with you that the goal of Putin is ethnic repatriation of people, because most of the ethnic Russians had left, especially Central Asian republics. They've left. So trying to expand militarily, economic in that region, it's not about repatriation. It's about reestablishing an old empire for which Putin and his minions long for. It's not about caring for their people. They never did that. It's about caring about their old history and political vision. And the second that I disagree with is that we should disregard the idea that it was an accident. That it was not an accident. I think when people play at that level of politics, 4D chess, doing the unexpected and doing the unthinkable is what they aim for.
No. Here I disagree with you on the second one. Okay. On the first one, I would grant you that Putin, he not only does he want to repatriate all the Russians, he also wants to build better, bigger, stronger Russia. Sure, and so he certainly would like to have the borders of Russia grow out, or at least have Russia be much more powerful than it currently is. And he's making efforts in that direction. But on the second one, on the issue, so I'll grant you the first one. Yeah, that Putin's motives are not Simon pure. He has an urge to more power. Well, it's perfectly fine, perfectly legitimate. But on the second one, this doesn't make any sense. Even on a 4D chess kind of level, you would not release something like this in the city where it was created. And you know why? Because if they'd done it, if they'd released it on purpose, they would have released it on purpose in Wuhan. They would have said already that it was an accident. If they were playing like 4D chess, like you're saying, then the move for them would we release it in Wuhan, where the center is, and we say immediately that it was an accidental lab leak. Okay, but releasing it deliberately in Wuhan, and then denying that it was a lab leak, and going to all kinds of efforts to deny that fact, and punishing people or spending resources to punish people who say that, and using a lot of your public relations apparatus in the West to convince people that it was from some farmer's market or whatever the fuck. Yeah, that makes sense if it was a lab leak. It doesn't make sense if it was deliberately released. You see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying, but trying to figure out, it's like, doing this logic through branching out. First branch out.
Okay, we gotta start from the message. We'll never know. Okay?
Sure.
In a real sense, it doesn't matter. Okay? Who gives a shit if it was an accident? Who gives a shit if it was deliberate? Ultimately, what's going to matter is how it is portrayed in order to convince these great nations to act.
Of course.
Will the American leadership class use this and say it was deliberate, so we got to go to war with these fuckers, right? That's one option. Whether they did it or not, it doesn't matter. It's how the event is used in terms of propaganda, and the propaganda used as a incentive or motivation to action. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely, but
we'll never know the truth.
I mean, we have to be conscious of the fact that for Chinese domestic consumption, the official line almost states explicitly that it was a foreign biological attack.
They're saying that. They're saying that it is a foreign biological attack, which is absurd. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
But that's the point. A nation that has a quarter of Earth's population has an almost explicit official version that it was biologically attacked? I mean, they're already preparing for war.
Yeah, they probably are. So we'll find out what happens. Okay. But like I said, ultimately it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. I mean, like I said, I believe it was an accident. Whether it was or not, we will never know conclusively, beyond a shadow of a doubt. We'll never know. Okay. And ultimately, it won't matter. It's like the Kennedy killing. Okay. Did Lee Harvey Oswald do it by himself, or was he part of a conspiracy, or was Lee Harvey Oswald totally innocent? It was just a bunch of other people. We'll never know. And at this point, it doesn't matter. You see? So yeah, that's what I think.
Thanks a lot, Coach.
No problem. Great talking to you.
Always.
Hey, Seamus, how's it going?
How are you doing? Can you hear me?
Good. Yeah, I hear you fine. What's up?
Great.
What's on your mind?
My question is about Ukraine. Just want to know, what is the general feeling? Do the people of Ukraine see the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, as an idiot for provoking?
Whoop. Whoa. Oh, man, Seamus, I kicked you by accident. Seamus, come back, Seamus. Oh, man, it was a total accident. Hello? Oh, man, damn it. And I can't pull him in. This isn't like Discord where you can pull in somebody. I accidentally clicked the wrong thing and I kicked him out. And I am so sorry about that. Seamus, if you hear me, come back on. And here's the link to join. And it was just a total accident. I was very interested in you asking me about Zelensky because I have some opinions about that. Seamus, oh, there we are. Let me pull him back in. Devices, you will need to connect. Oh, Seamus, you need to connect your mic camera before you can. There you go. Perfect. Hey, Seamus, how's it going? Sorry about that. That was a total mistake on my part. I'm so sorry about that.
Okay.
I'm sorry. You were asking me about Zelensky and Ukrainian politics. I'm very interested in this. And it just, I fucked up with the system here on StreamYard. So please accept my apologies.
Yeah, no problem, man. So just the general feeling in Ukraine, your sense of the general feeling in Ukraine. Do the people of Ukraine see Zelensky as an idiot for provoking Russia in April, or do they see the Americans as having let them down for not having their back? So is Zelensky's position untenable?
Well, his approval rating is at less than 20%. So yeah,
Okay.
I would say it's untenable. You see, the problem is that Ukraine is basically two people in one country. It's the Ukrainians, the ethnic Ukrainians, and the ethnic Russians. And there are more Russians towards the east than to the west. In the west, it's more Ukrainians.
I go to the Ukraine quite a bit, so I know. Yeah.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. I assume you're in Ireland, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you're in Ireland, not Northern Ireland, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Republic
So
of Ireland,
I'll tell you, like, my thinking is that most people think that he's a fool, but they're kind of stuck with him on the one hand.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the oligarchs in Ukraine are feeling a lot of pressure because Victoria Nuland and what's his name, Mnuchin, the current Secretary of State, and the Assistant Secretary of State, Victoria Nuland is the Assistant Secretary of State. She's the one who famously, berated. There was that famous phone call of a few years ago of basically telling the Europeans to fuck off and whatnot. It was very funny. Anyway, Victoria Nuland, who was a warmonger and whatnot, they came to Ukraine after the whole April crisis, and they basically told Zelensky that they want Zelensky to open up his economy and privatize a bunch of Ukrainian national industries so that American and European interests could take over. I mean, they basically want to rape Ukraine. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And of course, the oligarchs in Ukraine, they don't like it because they're going to lose their property, And so they don't know what to do because they've alienated Putin, and now and they got nothing for it. And now the Americans are basically saying, open your legs and spread them wide, and get ready for the ass raping of a lifetime. And so my thinking is that the Ukrainians ultimately they have no place to go except Russia.
Wow.
They have no out because the Europeans and the Americans prove that they are not dependable allies. And so the smart thing would be to get closer to Russia. And what's his name? Poroshenko, the president who was deposed. What was it? Yeah, Poroshenko was deposed, right? I always get them mixed up.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, he's in Russia, and it could be, and he's pro-Russian, of course, and it could be that the Russians wheel him out, ship him to Ukraine, and he wins the election, okay, by hook or by crook. And
or it could be, you know, that guy's Saakashvili, the guy that was in Georgia. They're trying to pump him up a bit as well.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. The point would be the same of having basically a Russian puppet running Ukraine, and so Ukraine. Look, they foolishly got into a situation where they had not thought things through, and they were convinced that the Americans and the Europeans would go to war with Russia over Ukraine, which is a foolish decision. I mean, that was just stupid. Okay.
Yeah.
Because they knew that the Russians would go to war with the Ukrainians if the Ukrainians attacked the sovereign republics of Donetsk and Lugansk, right? Which is just so much bullshit. It's basically just a Russian extension, right? But they knew that the Russians would defend them. Okay. And I think that what happened was that the Ukrainians, and especially the Europeans and Americans, whom I suspect egged them on to do this, I think that they did not think that the Russians had it in them to mobilize that many troops that quickly. And that scared them. Because you got to understand, militarily, this is a big deal. This is a big move. And so that's why my thinking is that they're like, holy shit, these Russians could really hurt us if they wanted to. And so, yeah. And so that's why the Americans and the Europeans just backed off, and they're going to leave Ukraine to its devices. And whatever promises Mnuchin and Nuland made, they're not going to live up to them. They're never going to protect Ukraine. They're never going to let American soldiers die for Ukraine. It's as simple as that. And so, that's my thing.
Yeah. Before, actually, you really called this a long time ago, because you made a podcast or webinar about all the different factions in the left in America. And that's really the most telling thing, I think, because people assume, especially in Ireland, that, Joe Biden, and he's just this old grandfather guy, and he's Irish American, and they're all getting on great. And they don't realize that the Obama faction hates the Ocasio-Cortez faction, and the Biden, they're all just wanting money and power, and they all hate each other. And that, like, the Chinese, on one hand, they're probably going, oh, this is great that they're weak, but they're probably going, these idiots are so hard to deal with, like.
Yeah,
they are just from a business perspective. You're just like, would you make up your mind, you idiot? Like,
It's the problem is that, see, the Chinese and the Russians have strong leadership. Okay, whatever you think of the Chinese, whatever you think of Putin and the Russians, they have strong leadership. They know what the fuck they're doing. And Xi and Putin have things firmly in hand. They're the leader. And they might have some factions and some backbiting here and there, but they're essentially one line. And ultimately, Putin and Xi are the men who say which line. And it could be in China. I mean, China is always a little bit of a black box because there are all these old men who really wield a lot of fucking power, right? Because that's the kind of culture that they have. And so a lot of times Xi is acting on behest of these old men who are sitting around drinking tea and playing mahjong and, deciding the fate of nations, right? But
the elderly are sort of supreme in China.
Yeah, exactly. But regardless of how the situation is, there is one line in both countries, okay? And they are both of these lines are expressed by the actions of Xi and the actions of Putin. And it doesn't matter how that line is drawn and how many hands are holding the pen that draws the line, but it's a single line. In America and in Europe, there are all these contradictory lines, and they're all over the fucking place. And that's the problem. Because if there was,
do you notice the other factor as well is that in Russia and China, it's stability. You're dealing with men, whereas Europe is that crazy van der Leyen woman, and Kamala Harris is trying to get in there, and you just like, Jesus, you just never know what's going to happen next.
No, you don't. Yeah, and the thing is, the more I listen to Kamala Harris, the more of a fucking idiot she comes across as. She's going to be just pulled this way and that way by these different factions. And she's going to have insane ideas of her own, and she's a complete moron,
Yeah.
And so God knows it. A van der Leyen woman, right? I forget her first name, Ursula. Yeah, she is an aristocratic German lady. That's what she is, and she grew up with a rich daddy who bought her a horse, and she married a rich guy. And she went to the right schools and rose up the bureaucracy because it was like a plaything. She's got like a bunch of kids, right? And periodically she'd quit her job and have kids because she's like the aristocratic lady. And so she does as she's supposed to, okay? She is the expression of the elite German leadership, okay?
She's not even that smart.
But she's not supposed. She's not there to be smart. She's there to be the expression of the will of the German elite, of the German business elite. Okay, that's her job. Okay, and she does it very well. And so the Germans are realizing that, and the German elite, and this is why I'm bringing up dear Ursula. The German elite are realizing that America is on the way out, and the Chinese and the Russians are on the way in. They're going up the ladder. And I think that the German elite are going to be the ones who realize that having the euro as the reserve currency would be all kinds of good for them. And so I think that they're going to be pushing this. I mean,
but there's another factor as well that's not really talked about in the media. Is basically it's never reported in the media, but the Green Party are destroying or have destroyed German industry, and they need, like you said, cheap energy, and this green energy agenda it's all about destroying industry, and they're ruling the roost in Germany.
Well, the German politics, my friend Red Pill Germany, I would suggest you follow his channel. He's a much better expert than me on what's going on in Germany specifically. Okay, and I'm going to have him on the webinar to talk about Germany and the German election that's coming up, because that's going to be a fucking riot, man.
That's going to be great, yeah.
And Red Pill Germany, he's a great guy because he's right wing, but he's very sober in his judgments. Just because he has a political preference doesn't mean that he's going to say something that is not reasonable or logical. He will arrive at conclusions that might be detrimental to his side, but which he estimates are true. And so that's a great person to have to discuss a subject such as Germany. So we'll see how it goes. So great having you on. Sure, go ahead.
One more thing you were saying about you said you got it wrong about the Wuhan virus. I wouldn't beat myself up too much about it, because you have to look back at the time they were saying that the case mortality rate was 1 in 4 in Wuhan. So that's the exact same as yellow fever. So like, I was at the start, I thought, it's just another Chinese virus. And then when I heard the case mortality rate, I was like, oh Jesus, there's something really wrong here. And then, no one knew. Well, actually, some people were saying, hey, that was kind of bioengineered, or was a biological weapon or something. And then I was going, oh my God, like, this could be anything,
Yeah, because at the time, my thinking was, okay, they found this shit right next to a lab, and they're claiming it's from some wet market where people were eating bats. Bullshit. It was an accident from this lab. And if they are freaking the fuck out and lying about its origins, this shit must be really, really bad. And so that's why I was freaking out. I mean, I don't feel ashamed of having freaked out, because at the time it seemed reasonable to be freaking out. It was just with experience, with actual cases, that you realized, oh, this wasn't so bad.
And it actually followed the path of a virus, which is either stays into one spot and is deadly, or it replicates and spreads out and becomes weaker. It can never be deadly and spreads faster. That's an impossibility in biology.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
I was thinking in the back of my head, oh my God, they've bioengineered something that can be more deadly and spreads faster. Like,
yeah, like I said, I thought it was like airborne Ebola. We're all fucked.
Yeah.
And we got lucky, because it could have been airborne Ebola. It could have been like
for all we know, they could have something like that in a lab. Who knows?
Yeah, well, the thing is, see, at the time, I was realistically looking at the possibility of buying myself a respirator in case somebody in my family got so sick and there wasn't any availability at the hospitals. I was making serious inquiries. Okay.
Yeah.
And then it just when was it? Like May, June. That's when you're like, oh, this shit is just bullshit. This shit is nowhere near what they're claiming.
It's easy to look back. Like, it's like, I remember what you were saying about the oil crisis. Like, people were really panicking back in the 70s, I'm sure, too. Or, there was a threat of the nuclear bomb where people were building their own shelters. And it's easy to look back and go, oh, that was stupid. But no, at the time, it's like red hot,
Yeah, exactly. So, anyway.
The good thing is I hope that we all learned something out of it, I think we did.
Well, the thing is, see, my fear is that we didn't, and that the next time there's a crisis, we're all going to lose our heads again. That's what I'm afraid about. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. Anyway, Seamus, great having you on, man. And
Thanks
by the way,
much.
My pleasure. Yeah. Thank you so much for being on. And by the way, Auroras, we see your comments, and it's not that nobody gives a fuck, but I'm wondering if, like, how to write. That's pretty big. Okay, and I don't think a lot of people really would like to do a webinar on how to write. Or I'll ask the chat. What the fuck? There are 82 people watching. So chat, if you think that it would be a good idea to do the next webinar on, quote, how to write, as Arosis suggests, hit a +1. And if you think it would be a bad idea, hit 0. There, we have instant democracy. So chat, do your thing. D, how's it going?
Hi, Coach. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine.
Okay, yeah. I'm from the UK, so I was just wondering, in this hypothetical scenario, how do you think the UK would react? Would the pound implode, or that's my question.
I don't know. That's a good question. Okay,
because
I really don't know.
Because the UK, obviously with Brexit, you can make the argument that it could be a lot more nimble, and sort of just be quite a good. They could react to different scenarios and just get an edge that way. Also, that's my thinking. But do you think
go ahead.
So obviously you're talking about SWIFT a lot.
Yeah.
Do you think that this would eventually be replaced by central bank digital currencies?
I have no idea. That probably not, because SWIFT works perfectly fine. Okay. The problem is cutting people off. That pisses them off. That started actually with the Obama administration, that first threatened Switzerland with cutting them out of SWIFT. The first time ever that anybody had been threatened with getting kicked out of SWIFT. And that freaked out the Swiss and put the Russians on notice. That's why they developed this parallel system. Now, about a different system, why would they? Why would they bother? The SWIFT system works perfectly fine. They might do experimentation and just to check it out, but like mass adoption of a completely different system, it doesn't seem necessary at this time. Of course, if there's sort of severe economic, freak out crisis, kind of like disaster kind of thing, then maybe, yeah. But at this time, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen.
No, I think it just presents a lot more surveillance technologies for institutions, and it means that they could cut out. So if the Bank of England could cut out all the central banks, and then you can obviously cut people off in more effective ways if you're that politically orientated.
What, the SWIFT system?
No, if you had a central bank digital currency.
I don't know. I mean, I honestly don't know. And frankly, I wouldn't worry about it at this time. There's other bigger fish to fry insofar as being worried about shit.
Okay.
a digital system, a digital currency system invented by central banks to track people's money more effectively. The system that exists now, that's in place, is extremely effective at that anyway. Okay.
Okay.
And so I really wouldn't worry about it, especially this drive to eliminate cash, because there are some countries like China, for instance, where you simply cannot exist on cash. It has to be electronic with a card, so it leaves a register everywhere. And the Swedes tried the no cash system, and it didn't work for particular reasons. But that general direction seems to be the future of most transactions being electronic. Let me phrase that: most large transactions, small transactions, piddly ass shit, sure, but it doesn't really affect the overall system. When you have every transaction over $1,000, essentially, is registered somewhere, then you don't need a digital currency like a central bank Bitcoin or some shit like that, central coin or something. You don't need that because you have it. You see what I'm saying?
Okay, that's good. So in the news recently, there's also been talk about a global minimum tax. Do you think?
Yeah, a global minimum corporate tax. Yeah. That's going to affect Ireland especially, and the Irish are freaking out about it because a lot of major corporations are in Ireland because Ireland has an extremely low, or I think it's a zero tax regime, corporate tax regime. And Apple and Facebook, I think, and a lot of other countries siphon their funds through Ireland and then off to America. But in that siphoning off, some of the money stays in Ireland, and it's a great source of revenue and whatnot for the Irish government. And so they don't want this 15% minimum corporate tax that they're floating. But I think that that'll probably happen, because I think a lot of countries are kind of like pissed off at Ireland for having done what it did. And also the French and the English, they'd like to have like some agreement on the corporate tax thing. It's long-term beneficial to a lot of governments. So I think that that's probably going to happen. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much for your time.
No problem. My pleasure, D. Thanks very much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show.
It's great. Thank you.
Thanks. Take it easy. Hey, Turner, how's it going?
It's gone well. Thank you for doing another webinar on this and touching on what happened last week. I think this is a great extension of that.
Yeah. It's man, things are moving along. Do you agree?
I don't even. My head starts to spin whenever I start to think about this, and I'm glad that you're able to connect the dots for us.
No, my head is spinning too. My head is spinning during the week. It's spinning like in The Exorcist, the girl in The Exorcist. Spinning around and around like a fucking top. It's only when I'm like on the show, I'm like holding my head as hard as possible. That's why I turn off the camera when I'm doing my presentation, because I'm doing it like this, like, stop spinning, motherfucker. It's spinning too much.
That's what's going on behind the scenes. Good to know.
Exactly. So
Awesome.
Anyway, what's on your mind, man?
Yeah, I think you touched on this a little bit, but where might Bitcoin and cryptocurrency fall into all this? I'm personally kind of teetering on the edge of in or out, but go ahead.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. See, when you get to moments of real change, things become very unpredictable. And let's have a quick show of hands in the chat here. Chat, do you guys think that in the next 18 to 30 months, the world will be unrecognizable from today? If you think yes, hit +1. If you think no, hit 0. Let's wait for chat to catch up. But my thinking is that there are so many things that are changing right now. And there's this sense of unpredictability that we're approaching like a nexus point that anything could happen. And insofar as cryptos are concerned, if you told me that in 10 years, nobody will even remember Bitcoin, or in 10 years, the global economy will be based on Bitcoin, frankly, neither would surprise me. I mean, I gotta say, either outcome is unsurprising. Okay, it could be either or any combination or any gradation thereof. Because we're coming to like the next. I mean, you can feel it in the air. There's something else too. and this is just idle speculation on my part. You can take it with not just a grain of salt, but a huge boulder of salt. But have you noticed how in the last 20 years or so, right, that fashions haven't really changed? Fashions haven't changed, and the music hasn't changed. The literature, the art scene, it hasn't really changed. There hasn't been much of an evolution. You see what I'm saying?
You've touched on this on the how film has kind of grown over the years, and it's kind of the same thing over and over. And you see sequels coming out for movies that happened, decades ago, and now they're just redoing, they're making a Highlander remake.
Yeah,
now.
a new Highlander. Yeah, I mean,
So
look, original Highlander was just this dumb, goofy, fun picture. Okay, but now they're doing another. Sorry, I'm squishing up my water bottle. Sorry about that. But
I thought you were just venting your frustration.
Yeah, that too. But they're doing this it was a fun, goofy movie, and at the time, everybody thought that it was a piece of shit. But now they're remaking it like it's some sort of classic or some shit like that. Come on, man. I mean, it's okay, the culture is stagnant. That's the vibe. The culture is stagnant, and we need a change. That the whole place, the whole fucking system has stagnated for the last 25 odd years. That's the vibe that I'm getting. I mean, and you look at people's clothes and you look at people's attitude, it's stagnant, So I, for one, just welcome this huge change, because I'm just sick of the stagnation. I want something new, Yeah. And I'm just really curious as to what the fuck is going to happen. I'm just, holy shit, anything can happen. Yeah.
But I remember when.
Go ahead.
No, I just remember when in 2016, I was with a group of other people who are on the left, and when Trump got elected, I started laughing. Everybody else started crying. I started laughing, and I was like, "Well, maybe this is what I needed." Maybe at the time, I thought it's going to be the end of the world, and I was just laughing my head off.
Yeah, I mean, see, I think we're stagnant, and I think that a colossal cataclysmic crisis. Short term, it's going to hurt like hell, but maybe long term, it will be a beneficial thing. Who knows? And so yeah. Anyway, Turner, anything else on your mind, man?
Yeah, I wonder if you can play out that speculation a little bit more. And understanding this is not financial advice, and let's just say someone gave you $100 and you had to place a bet on that. How would you go about splitting it, just given what you know today? Would it be some in euro, some in precious metals, etc.?
Oh yeah, euros and precious metals. And a little bit of crypto, but not the ranch on crypto. I mean, that's the thing. Crypto heads they bet everything on fucking crypto. And, the thing goes down $2, and they freak out and throw themselves out the window and shit. I mean, I'd put a little bit, say 15% tops in crypto, and the rest in euros and dollars. And of course, not euros cash. Excuse me, euros and precious metals. My mistake. Euros and precious metals. And I wouldn't put it in, of course, literal precious metals or literal euros. I'd buy euro assets or commodity assets, like mining companies, shit like that. But I'll tell you right now, this is not financial advice. You were asking me a hypothetical. Okay? I don't want to be, because who knows what the fuck is going to happen. Okay. And I am not, telling you how to invest or any shit like that. Okay. But all kinds of craziness is coming. I mean, you can fucking feel it, you can fucking feel it. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. That's why I was asking if you had to just throw in some bets, understanding this is not advice at all, in terms of financial advice. Where would you kind of go about it today? And maybe this totally changes next week and the dollar just suddenly does extremely well. We don't know.
Who knows? No, I mean, look, it's not like the dollar's going to keep on going down, down, down. That's not how it works. Okay. But when it happens, you'll know. Okay. It'll be really fucking obvious. Okay. When things start to go tits up, see, when things start going tits up, it's not like the situation sort of gently taps you on the shoulder. When shit starts to go tits up, it's like a very nasty 7-foot tall guy with really big muscles and a tattoo that says death on his shoulder grabs you by the throat and shoves you up against the wall. Okay.
Okay.
I mean, you're gonna know. Okay. It's not gonna be like, is it now or no? No, you'll know. Okay. So
Mhm.
just like the whole COVID thing, when they got serious about lockdowns and all that shit, you knew it. You know, the whole fucking thing shut down, right? Same fucking thing. You know, you'll know. It's not going to be you're not going to be wondering whether it's happening or not. Everybody will be talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, great talking to you, man. We'll catch you next time.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take it easy, Turner. Anthony, are you there?
Yeah, I am, Coach. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're fine. How's it going, man?
All right. How are you doing yourself?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Where are you at?
I'm actually in California.
California.
Yeah,
Yeah.
California.
Oh, how's that
Unfortunately.
place? You know, I've been seeing some videos of just all kinds of terrible things going on over there. I saw a video of some guy in Gardena, you know, some big obese guy, a black guy, who went up to some woman and beat the ever living fuck out of her and just walked away. What the
Yeah.
fuck is going on in that goddamn state? I was born there, by the way. So,
Oh,
like, what the fuck?
I have no idea, man. I'm just trying to stay out and stay out of our limelight and get out of this crazy situation. But I'm mainly here because my mom, you know, she wants to be here. So, and she's kind of
Yeah, whenever anything like that happens, is get the fuck away from any kind of situation. Yeah? Nobody's gonna think you're a coward, okay? And that goes for everybody. If you ever see some shit going on in the States, just get the fuck away. And if people call you chicken or whatever, fine, you're a chicken. Who gives a fuck? See? You don't want to get mixed up in any kind of situation, you know? Yeah.
No, I'm gonna leave as soon as I can. But my mom's an elderly lady. She's been here most of her life, so I understand. She's attached to here. She's never left the state. So that's
It's her home. It's her home. Of course, she doesn't want to leave it. That's perfectly reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's on your mind, Anthony?
Okay, so I had a couple questions. First one, probably I don't understand this very well, but why has China all these years been just accumulating treasury bonds, and why don't they just get rid of it? Why are they still holding on to it?
Well, because treasury bonds are incredibly liquid, and you can sell them quickly, and there's always going to be demand for them. It's a very liquid market, and it's very necessary in order to park your dollars to get the oil that you need. And look, when you're running a trade surplus, yeah, where do you park all the money that you're getting? Okay, look, say you're a manufacturer in China, right? You run some factory and you make some widgets in China, whatever the fuck the widgets are, and you sell these widgets to the Americans, and the Americans give you dollars, right? But you're in China, so what the fuck you do with those dollars? You go to me, the Central Bank of China, and I take your dollars and I give you yuan because you're in China, right?
Yeah.
You can't pay your workers in dollars because they're going to be like, what the fuck do we do with these dollars? In fact, it's probably illegal, okay? Because in most countries in the world, in fact, I would say all countries in the world, you have to pay your workers in the currency of that country.
Oh.
And just as, you know, everybody who pays taxes has to pay the taxes in the currency of that country. So you earned a bunch of dollars by selling your goods and or services to an American, right? Or a bunch of Americans, and you got a bunch of dollars. So you come to me, Chinese Central Bank, and I take your dollars and I give you yuan, the local currency of China. And you take your yuan and you pay your suppliers and your workers and whatnot, and you go on your merry way. Now, I'm the central bank. I have all these dollars, like $100 bills, a stack of them. What the fuck am I going to do with these fucking things? Just sit there and not accumulate interest? No, I turn around and I buy treasury bonds. Now, why do I buy treasury bonds? Because they give a little bit of interest. See? They pay out a little bit of interest, you know, 1.5% at this point, which is nothing, but still it's something, you know? And so I park my dollars into treasury bonds. Now, I'm China, right? And you're a factory, and you have a factory, and you say, I got to buy some oil. Okay? I got to buy oil from the Saudis because my factory needs oil for the machinery or whatever the fuck, right? So you have yuan. You don't have any dollars. So you come to me, the central bank, and I sell you dollars. Now, where do I get these dollars? From all this inventory of treasury bonds that I have. I take a couple of those treasury bonds, sell them out in the open market, get dollars. I turn around and I give you dollars and I take your yuan, right? And now you take those dollars and go out and buy oil from the Saudi Arabians or whoever the fuck, right? And you get the oil. And you get the oil and you use it for your factory or whatever the fuck, right? And so that's how I get rid of my treasury bonds. But see, if you're selling, like say you're selling, like I'm just making something up, $500 million a year in your goods and services, right? You're getting $500 million to you. And then you're spending, hypothetically, 400 million on oil and other shit. Okay, I made the numbers absurdly large, but it doesn't matter. It's just a hypothetical. You spend $400 million on, you know, oil and other commodities that are bought on the open market with the dollars that you got, right? Yeah. So you have an extra $100 million, but that extra $100 million, what the fuck are you going to do with it? So because you're in China, right? And in China, the goods and services that you want to buy in China are in yuan. So you give me your $100 million and I give you the equivalent in yuan. See? And so what happens is that me, the central bank, I accumulate more and more and more dollars. And of course, I don't want to have dollars because just, you know, a $100 bill or $100 million, however much it is, if it's just sitting there, it's not earning any interest. It's just sitting there. It's a waste. So you buy, or I rather, buy treasury bonds. You see?
Oh, I see.
That's how it works. Okay.
Oh.
The economy of China has been exporting. And so what happens is that the central bank winds up accumulating all of these dollars, and it parks the dollars in these treasury bonds. See?
So they're just trying to get more and more interest, basically, and until they eventually want to dump it for one reason or another.
See, the interest doesn't really matter. What matters is, at this point, if they decide to dump the treasury bonds, right?
Yeah.
It would hurt the Americans, but it wouldn't hurt you. You're a Chinese manufacturer, right?
Yes.
I'm the central bank. Who owns the treasury bonds? You or me? Me. I'm the central bank. So if I sell this shit, it's not going to hurt you. It's not going to hurt the people of China. It will hurt the people of America. And it will hurt me, the central bank of China, but I don't give a fuck, you know? So I lose some money. Who cares? Because I'm the central bank of China. I'm not here to make money, okay? I'm here to make sure that my Chinese people are doing okay and that they have a mechanism by which they can get their dollars and turn them into yuan, or take their yuan and give them dollars, right? But if I say to you, hey, dude, Anthony, from here on out, you don't buy oil in dollars from Saudi Arabia. You buy oil in euros from Iran. What are you going to say? You're going to say, okay.
Oh.
You see? Because you know, how are you going to say no to the central bank? You got an order, motherfucker. You got to follow it.
Yeah.
That's how it works. So suppose one day I say to you, you come to me and say, I want to buy dollars to buy oil. And I say to you, nope. And you're like, but I need to buy oil. No, you can buy oil. The Iranians are selling oil in euros. Here's some euros. Go buy it. Are you going to care?
No.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
Your point of view doesn't really matter. Buy it from the Saudis. Buy it from the Iranians. Who gives a fuck? Oil is oil. I have to pay now in euros instead of dollars. You're going to ask yourself, how does this affect me? And you're going to answer yourself, it doesn't. It doesn't affect me at all. See?
All right.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Thank you for that. I have one other question. I'm asking this one for my son. He doesn't live with me, but he watches your content all the time. Yeah, but he actually lives.
Oh, I like that.
He lives out in Texas actually. So, but he's about 16 right now, and he told me if I could ask you this question. He wanted advice. I told him probably you're gonna want something more specific, like what he should be doing as a 16-year-old to be like successful. And he's planning to join the army in a couple of years when he becomes an adult. So, but he wanted your guidance and advice on what he should be doing and stuff.
And tell him to join the Marines. Because the benefits are going to be the same if he joins the Marines or the Army. The Marines will be tougher than the Army. The Army are just a bunch of pussies at this point. Yeah, and then they've got like the diversity training and shit. The corporal has 2 mommies and all that crap. Yeah. But anyway, I think that joining the armed forces is a great idea if you're young and you don't know what to do, and it's really great to get that discipline that the armed forces can give you. And I think that it's a fine idea. Now, but what was the specific question that he had?
I asked him if he could kind of get something more specific, but he basically, with everything that's I mean, he can sense too that something's changing with the U.S., but he wants to know how he can be like grow up as like a successful adult. I know that's way too general, but he couldn't give me like something really, really specific, like what things he should be doing to become successful in life as he's going up.
It's easy. Tell him that what he should be doing is he should be reading 50 pages a day of any fucking book, nonfiction. Okay.
Okay.
50 pages a day, and he should be running 20 miles a week, and or let me phrase that. He should be sweating an hour every day, either by running or lifting weights or whatever the fuck. It doesn't matter, but he should be sweating, like heavily sweating, for an hour every day. And he should be reading 50 pages a day of any book that strikes his fancy. He should go to a Barnes & Noble, walk in, look at the new fiction, the new paperback nonfiction section, okay? And just look around at the books that appear there and ignore every book that's about race. Just blow that off and read any book that he finds interesting. Like some history that he's never heard of, some shit he doesn't know about. Just pick it up. I think that a great book. Hang on, I have it right here. Hang on.
Okay.
Yeah, hello. I was reading this. I got this like 4 years ago, and I'm reading it now. And it's really great. It's by a guy called Peter Frankopan.
Okay, I see it.
Roads. It's a world history book. Tell him to read it. It'll give him like a lot of information, historical information, and just tell him to read history and just like, and of course, if you tell him read 50 pages every day, it's like it'll be too big of a mountain. So tell him to read like 5 pages every day, and to do that for like a month, and then to read another 10 pages a day on the second month. And so I'm just to gently ease into it. I mean, like, think about it. It would be insane for me to tell you, go run, 26 miles in a marathon right the fuck now. You can't do it. Right? So
no, he was in the cross country, so he's been running, but not 20 miles a day. But he's been.
My point is that you want to have a sound mind and a sound body. So what you do is you work up to, you get to the point of 50 pages every day. That takes about an hour and a half to read. Okay, once you get to that level, and yeah, like I say, gradual. Okay, do 5 pages, and then go up and up little by little. And it doesn't matter what he reads, okay? Because what happens is that you read enough. When you get to that level of doing 50 pages a day, you read so much shit that you just learn, okay? Oh, and tell them to stop with the fucking screens. No more phone shit, no more computer shit. Because, yeah, it's a time suck.
Yeah.
Okay? And quit it with the porn, but jerk off whenever he feels like it, okay? But quit it with the porn, because the porn just fucks your head,
Okay. And, should he worry about women or not? It's too young
he'll fumble around with some women or some shit like that, but he'll be a complete failure at it because he's 16. I mean, come on. Of any motherfucker who was any good with women at 16? None. Fuck up.
Really?
It's an issue of experience. So no, what he should be focused on is improving his mind and improving his body. That's what he should be focused on. Yeah. If he's fat, he's got to exercise until he loses the fat, you know?
Oh, he's skinny. He's skinny. So not. But I'm a little fat, but he's skinny. That's a good thing.
This is shit I would say for everybody, myself included. I'm like reading about 100 pages a day and not doing any fucking exercise. So I guess I'm sort of like making up for it. But you know, that's my life right now.
Should he concentrate more on nonfiction as opposed to fiction?
Yeah, nonfiction. Yeah, when he's starting out, he wants nonfiction, shit that he can learn. Okay. And you know, for the first couple of years, at least, just stick to nonfiction and popular nonfiction. Like I said, the new paperback nonfiction books at the Barnes and Noble, because they'll be about all kinds of interesting shit, but not to read any of those race hustling bullshit books. Oh, you know, white fragility, or you know, or the racist inside me, or whatever the fuck, you know, whatever all this bullshit. No, get the fuck away from that shit, because that shit is just going to rot his mind, and he wants to be learning information, okay, not ideology. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's good advice there. I'll let him know that.
Yeah. And tell him thanks for watching my shit, and I'm hoping that I'm glad he enjoys it. Yeah.
Oh, he loves your stuff. He thinks like you're one of the most knowledgeable and intelligent people in the world. He wishes.
Oh man, he's got to meet more people, man. He's so wrong. He's got to meet more people.
You're like his idol. So you're like his idol.
No, that's not good. That does not speak well of your poor boy. Yeah, send him my best. I really appreciate it. That's
okay,
really
we'll do. I'll let him know you said hi. Okay.
Yeah, most certainly. Take it easy, Anthony.
You too. Take care. Thank you.
Okay, Lucas, how's it going?
Gonzalo, thanks for getting me on the show. Hi.
Hey, how's it going? What's up?
Perfect. Very good. And yourself?
Can't complain. Well, I'm coming down with a little cold, and I think it's COVID. COVID is out to get me.
I didn't make it into the stream earlier today. What about your plans of going to Russia?
Oh, they had to be postponed because of just some personal stuff that are going on in Kharkov. Nothing important, but it just got postponed for a couple of weeks. And if all goes well, like on the 14th, I'm heading out there. So yeah.
Cool. That's good to hear. Nice.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, Gonzalo, I wanted to tell you one thing, which is that I think you have a unique value proposition in your content, which I very much appreciate you doing content on, which is psychological insights. And I believe you do a lot of good content on the sphere of business, on the sphere of women, but also topics like psychedelics and even daydreaming, which I hope you will do another video on.
Yeah. I have to finish that series, but thanks very much. That's very kind of you to say.
Yes,
so
I believe.
Mind, man?
Pardon?
What's on your mind?
I have a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
Basically, those are three different ones. First one is, well, for my current situation, I'm 25. I'm from Germany. I live in Hamburg, and I work at a strategy consulting boutique.
I used to live near Hamburg. I lived in Flensburg.
Thanks. That's nice to hear. Yes.
I was there all the time. Yeah. And so my maternal grandmother was from up there. So yeah. So anyway, you were saying?
Cool. Well, my situation right now is that I'm starting out with my career. I have a bachelor's degree. I speak several different languages, German, obviously, English, French, Spanish, and my Chinese is decent as well. And I already made it into several different parts of the world. I lived in China for half a year doing an exchange semester over there in the city of Hangzhou. And so I'm very familiar with China. I had a Chinese girlfriend who showed me around the whole country and obviously practiced the language with me. And right now my situation is that I do need a job to finance my lifestyle, finance my education on the side, all of that. And I'm thinking about how to pursue entrepreneurship at the same time, because there are several different goals I'm having right now, and it's hard for me to prioritize and to strategize exactly what I want to do. But basically, my idea right now is I quit my job in strategy consulting, which is a very good one, but I have the goal of going abroad to live in different countries. And my idea right now is to look for a remote business development job where I can practice my soft skills and sales and all of that, because I think that's a very universal.
Okay, well, the first thing, you quit your job at strategy consulting, but did you have anything else to go on to?
Yes, I have a good network who can help me to find a new good job.
Do you have a job currently?
No, I want to quit my job in strategy
Oh,
consulting.
you want to?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought that you
Yes.
had. Okay. That's very different, because I understood that you had quit your job already, and I was like, oh man, that's a mistake if you don't have something the next thing to go to. You always want to let go of the last. You want a monkey branch. You want to let go of the previous branch, but already have the next one firmly in hand before you let go. So anyway, so you're asking me, you want to, I understand you want to be more entrepreneurial, right?
More entrepreneurial on the one side, and on the other side, I want to pursue 3 different ideas of freedom, 3 different priorities, which is geographical, temporal, and finally financial, obviously.
Okay, the temporal one, what does that mean exactly?
That I can work from different countries. I want to be
no, the first one was freedom of. Can you repeat that?
Geographical freedom. So that I can work from anywhere.
Temporal. I mean, geographic freedom, yeah, you can work anywhere, but temporal freedom, what does that mean?
That means that I can work in different time zones and basically take a day off when I want to have the option to.
Okay.
Yeah. So I get some flexibility in that sense.
Okay.
And the third one, obviously, is financial freedom, that I can build my net worth faster, that I can invest more money, start to acquire passive income and all of that.
Okay. So you want to ask me how to do that?
Yes, whether you have any ideas for that, or you have any good advice of how to pursue that.
Well, with your particular situation, I would go to China. Yeah, I mean, if you speak Chinese, right? And how well do you speak it, by the way?
Well, I can speak it in the sense that I can get around the country, but not on a business level. So it's limited proficiency.
Then you'd want to be in a situation where you could improve your Chinese so that you're business proficient, as it were.
Well, I think China issued a statement that you can get back into the country at the beginning of next year. And until then, I thought of going to Taiwan, which obviously is like a risky place to be in right now. But obviously, I can practice my Chinese there as well.
What about Hong Kong?
Hong Kong is super expensive, so I don't know if I can finance that.
Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter how going to Hong Kong, for instance, it's super expensive. So you'd live in some shitty place, but it doesn't matter because the whole point is to get the business experience, and you could probably move to Hong Kong before the end of the year. Because is it open now?
I'm not sure about that.
But either your firm or a firm analogous to yours probably has an office in Hong Kong. And so you could go to headhunters and tell them, look, I have a hard on to get to China. Help me. And they could probably help you out.
That's an interesting idea. I didn't think about headhunters in that sense. I do already have a company I looked out for where I would like to sell a B2B e-commerce solution, doing it completely remotely, which this firm offers. My firm doesn't officially offer it. They do have a requirement that I might have to go back to the office, but what I would like to do is give up my nice apartment in the city center of Hamburg so I can go live abroad in different countries and obviously learn languages there as well.
Yeah, it would be smart for you to perfect your business Chinese, because if you already, look, you're 25, right? You're in no real hurry. So what you should be thinking about is improving the key skills that will get you far over the long term. And one of those, the obvious one, is if you speak Chinese already, then you want to have perfected your business Chinese. So you could do business fluently in China. And see if you're ethnically German?
Yes.
Okay. And you speak German, English, and French, you said?
And Spanish.
French and Spanish? Okay.
Yeah.
So you'd be really a key guy in China. I know I don't know them personally, but it would be obvious that people in China would be very, very interested in you, working with you. And so it seems obvious that China is where you should be going. You shouldn't be wasting your time elsewhere. What you should be doing is thinking, how can I get to Hong Kong and perfect my business Chinese so that I can be flexible about where I am. See,
And
right
do you think
now,
the best way of
you have a lot of potential, but you don't have anything to offer at this time. So you want to build up what you have to offer. It would seem to me that being that nexus point between China and Europe would be ideal. And you always got to remember that a businessman is a middleman. He puts people together. Okay, he's the he's the pipeline between two people or two places. Okay, if you want to be a businessman and have all that freedom that you've discussed and outlined, which is perfectly reasonable, well, then you have to have something that other people want. See, if you do not have something that other people want, why would they give you financial freedom, geographic freedom, temporal freedom? You have to have something that other people want. And so what would be smart is for you to figure out contacts that you have. If you think of yourself as a pipeline between two different groups of people, right? You have to figure out what's on offer here and what's on offer here. See, here is Europe and here is China. And so you have to figure out, how to get people aware that you're the through line. Okay. And once you have shown them that you can be an effective pipeline, they will come to you again and again and again. You see what I'm saying?
I see.
That's why one of the first things that you want to do is be like perfectly fluent in Chinese, in business Chinese at least. Okay. I'm assuming that business Chinese is just Chinese, but just with the sophisticated and normal language of any business language, right? And so you want to get proficient at that. Yeah. And
so if I understand correctly, you would
spend 3, 4, 5 years at that, and it'll be very well invested. It will be a very, very good investment. Okay. And if you're good with languages, it'll probably be a lot less before you're totally fluent in Chinese and you can do whatever you want. Right. So that's my thinking. That's what I would do at this point if I were you in your shoes.
I see. So if I understand correctly, you would advise me to strategize in the way that I keep pursuing a corporate career, stay in a business branch in China or in Asia, work from there, and not basically get a job in Germany and just work remotely for a German company, because that's my idea of what I want to do right now. And then go to China, just acquire the business skills and not concentrate too much on thinking about how to build a side venture or a business up front, because I have some of my very good friends very close to me. They already built their own companies. One of them just moved to Cyprus to optimize his tax situation, obviously, and he's making big money there. So I do put some pressure on myself to build my net worth as fast as possible.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine to build your network as fast as possible. But see, this friend who moved to Cyprus because of this business, without going into specifics, what was the business?
Internet business, media on finance.
Okay, so he had customers and he had a supplier of product, right?
Affiliate provisions.
Okay, well, remember, if you're a businessman, you are the pipeline. Okay, you're putting two groups of people together. And because they are going through you, they have to each pay you.
How do you monetize that?
Well, okay, let me give you a simple example. This internet business shit, right? So he's got like some internet shit. It doesn't matter what the business is. I don't give a fuck. That's not the point. The point is, your friend, right? He knows people who want to pay for internet service of whatever fucking sort. And on the other hand, he knows IT guys who can create the service, because I'm assuming that he's not a programmer, right?
No.
Yeah. See, so what's he doing? He's shepherding a group of IT guys, right? And he doesn't take these IT guys and say, here are my clients, go to them. No, because then that would eliminate his own job, which is a pipeline. See? So he's got this group of IT guys and he's got them isolated and they can only go through him. He's the pipeline, right? So they can only go through him. So they only go when he says, right? And on the other hand, on the other end of the pipeline, he has a bunch of clients. Okay. And so these clients will pay him money to put them in touch with the IT guys that he has. See? That's the business that he has. See? Because
so basically you have to,
like this. You see?
You have to first build that brand, build that brand reputation.
No. You don't have to build a brand reputation. That's corporate speak bullshit. What you have to build, what you have to acquire, is something that somebody else is willing to pay for.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. Suppose this. Suppose I'm having drinks with some guy, and he's like, "Oh, I need somebody to build me this website and shit like that because whatever the fuck." And you happen to know a friend of yours called Klaus, and Klaus is like this brilliant IT guy, okay? And he's kind of like a little bit loony, but he's a brilliant IT guy. And you're having drinks with a guy called Sebastian. I'm just making some name up, right? So you tell Sebastian, "Hey, I can fix your IT problem." And Sebastian looks at you over the drink that you're having at the bar or wherever, and you're like, wait, you can fix it? Yeah, sure. Let me look into it because I know some people and I can put them together for you, and we can solve your problem. And then you turn around the next day, you call up the other guy, Klaus, and you say, "Hey, Klaus, I need you to do some internet shit for me. Okay, can you do it for me?" And Klaus will say, "Sure. I don't have any work right now, and so yeah." And so you call up Sebastian and you tell him, "Hey, Sebastian, I can fix your problem for 100%. I can solve it." And you go to what's his name, the other guy. There's Sebastian and Klaus. You go to Klaus and you tell him, "Klaus, how much would you charge me to do this website for this bank?" And Klaus says, "Oh, that would cost you 10,000 euros." And so you turn around and go to Sebastian and says, "Hey, Sebastian, I can do this website that you need for 25,000." And Sebastian will say, okay. And there you go. And that's how all business is. All business is. You don't set up a company first and build the reputation. No. You find people who want something and you find people who can provide it and you put them together. But you don't grab the guy who can provide it and put him in the room with the other guy because that cuts you out.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
You're the middleman. Okay. So Klaus is telling you that he's going to charge you 10,000 euros for this fucking software shit, right? And you're like, fine. And so you turn around to Sebastian and say, it's going to be 25,000. And Sebastian is going to be like, fine. Okay. And you, at the end of the day, if you did it properly, you pay off Klaus 10,000 and maybe you throw him an extra bonus if he does it really good, another 1,000 or 2,000, right? And you sit pretty with 15,000, and you won the money. And who worked? Who was working? Klaus was working. You weren't. See, this is the whole notion of being a capitalist pig. Okay. A capitalist pig exploits the worker. Okay. That's the whole point of fucking capitalism. Okay.
That's the lever. Yes.
Putting people together. Okay. You're not putting them in the same fucking room. You're the conduit between them. And the only thing that flows from one end to the other is work. Okay. If the problem with Sebastian's thing is very, very complicated, then what you do to Klaus is you say, Klaus, I'm going to hire you and you'll be my employee and you sign this non-disclosure agreement. And that way Klaus can never go to Sebastian and take your business away. See, that's how it works. See? And so that way you can take Klaus over to meet with Sebastian, or probably meet with Sebastian's IT people, and they work it out, right? But Klaus is never going to go off and work for Sebastian because you have that work contract and you have that non-disclosure agreement, okay? Or non-compete agreement, right? That's how business works.
I see. So that's super helpful as for the monetization aspect of doing business in this sense as a middleman. Thanks very much for that. I have two more questions. One is on Russian women, basically, because just a month or two ago, I visited a good Ukrainian friend of mine. I'm a super smart guy in the south of France. And we traveled together to Paris. He threw a party there during COVID times. But he invited like a lot of very pretty Russian women who all studied at MGIMO University, so they're super smart, influential, all of that. And I ended up like hooking up with one of them and found out that she's an entrepreneur in Russia.
Yeah.
And I was thinking as for how to deal with Russian women better. I mean, I know the basics of it, but the idea was asking her to come visit me in Hamburg, and she already agreed. And it's a little difficult, a little tricky to get her to convince her to come here, basically. So maybe you have any advice?
Wait, it was difficult. I don't understand. She agreed or did not agree?
She agreed. Yes.
Okay. So why is it difficult?
She's back in Russia right now and will come back in like 3 months or so. And I'm wondering how to give her more confidence, more.
Go visit her.
Go visit her, you mean?
Yeah. Show up. Tell her, I don't want to wait around 3 months. I want to see you now, and tell her this, and say, I'm gonna hop and tell her I'm gonna go on an airplane. I'm gonna fly out there for the weekend or whatever the fuck, all right, or however long you can swing. Yeah. Look, you show up at her doorstep, right, with a big bouquet of flowers. That's a big statement, And Russian women, man, you show up with a big bouquet of flowers, man. For them, it's a big statement. It's a big deal. Russian women, for them, like getting a big bouquet of roses. I'm talking like 3 dozen roses, right? It's kind of expensive, I suppose. It's like 100, 200 euros or whatever.
Gonzalo, I gotta say, it's a funny coincidence because this girl actually has a business for flowers.
Well, yeah, but for them, it's like a big fucking deal. Well, then get her something else. Don't get her flowers because she'll know that. But for them, it's like a big fucking deal. Okay, I'll tell you that right the fuck now. So anyway, yeah, Russian women are tough, right? And they don't fuck around. And if they think that you're weak, they discard you. It's as simple as that. So don't show weakness to them. They will never forgive you for showing weakness.
Yes, well, I don't think that I made any bad impression on her in that sense, because she's she's a very popular girl. She's extremely pretty, but it's kind of tough of getting this to come here. But maybe I should do that and go to Moscow or so to visit her.
Lucas, did you bang her?
I didn't bang her, but I went almost that far. At a party, at the bathroom. No, that's not.
No, you got to bang her. If you haven't banged her, it doesn't mean shit. Okay?
True.
So yeah, you convinced her to visit you in Hamburg. When is she going to visit you? In 3 more months?
Yes, in 3 more months she will come back to Europe.
She's never going to visit you.
Takes too long, right? Keep it warm.
She's going to forget you.
Yep, that's what I thought. Okay. And it's too difficult to keep up contact with her during that time.
Yeah, so you have to go there. I mean, if you're that interested in her, go there. Okay.
Right.
And if it's not that big of a deal, it's just an experience, and move on. Don't get tied up. You're 25. You got plenty of time. Okay. And so, yeah, don't get all tied up with the first girl that is like really hot that you come across. Okay. If you're really into her, then go visit her. Simple as that. Yeah.
Nice. Well, actually, I'm really down to learn Russian as well, so that would obviously be a motivation to start learning the language.
Yeah. And what's your third question?
My third question is on siblings. I have a younger sister who is 22, and she's traveling around the world and all of that. And sometimes our relationship is a little bit difficult. And I'm wondering of how to communicate better with her, because obviously she's in the situation that any pretty looking girl in her 20s is in. And it's a little tough of how to keep a really friendly and good relationship to her, because obviously she is very interested in emotions, and it's a little difficult situation because I believe personally that our dad is a loser, and I don't hold contact to him. She doesn't really do it either, and she sees me being very successful in my career, and her obviously as well. She's a smart girl. But I'm thinking about how to improve our relationship because I don't have much contact with her, and it's a little bit rough,
Well, tell her that you want to improve your relationship with her and agree to meet like once a week for lunch or something. I assume she lives in Hamburg.
No, she lives in Italy.
Oh, she lives in Italy permanently?
For some time, and after that she'll move to Spain probably.
She'll move to where?
Spain. And I wanted to move to Spain as well, actually. For a few months.
Well, tell her that. Tell her, be honest with her. I mean, she's your sister. You can afford to be honest with her. You don't want to bang her, obviously, so you can afford to be honest and tell her, look, I don't want our relationship to become like this relationship of strangers who knew one another way back when. And tell her that you want to invest time into building a real relationship and not just this relationship in name only.
I see. So basically, the challenge for me is that in my perception, she's acting quite arrogant frequently, and obviously, she gets a lot of like financial support from our dad. I don't at all, and yes, well, it's kind of like a tricky situation because, yeah, it's just a little bit difficult because I don't see her frequently, and we're on different vibes sometimes.
Well, and you have to also recognize that sometimes a relationship has no future, and sometimes you have to just realize that and accept that that's the case. And that you have a sibling and you'll rarely see her and she'll just be a polite stranger, and sometimes you just have to accept that, because look, the way that she's living in Italy and then moving to Spain, and you're in Germany, and then you're planning on moving to China or wherever, or Russia or wherever, you're just not going to have a lot of opportunities to spend time together, and so that's life. That's the life in our contemporary society. And sometimes you just have to resign yourself and think to yourself, well, what do I want from life long term? Okay.
Freedom.
Well, yeah, but freedom to do what? Freedom per se, that's not an objective. Freedom is just a vehicle to achieve something specific. Okay. Just to say, oh, I want to be free. That means nothing.
I want to live in different parts of the world. I want to speak different languages. I want to have friendship circles all around the world. I want to sail around the world. This is the type of freedom I'm imagining, to do business with whoever I want to pursue whatever goal I want to. Yeah.
Then what you have to do is recognize that will mean that certain relationships you will have to sacrifice them, or not sacrifice them like destroy them, but rather they will remain superficial and in a certain sense kind of trivial, and that's inevitable. I mean, what you're telling me about your relationship with your sister, it seems pretty clear that long term it'll be just a very superficial relationship. And if her personality is as arrogant and dismissive as you say, then you trying to red pill her or something like that, it's not going to work. She'll just dismiss you. And so, and more likely than not, you'll probably antagonize her, and she'll not want to spend time with you. And so, you just have to realize, yeah, this relationship with my sister, I love her and all, but it's always going to be superficial.
Well, I'm really trying to avoid that because I love my sister and she's a super smart girl, and obviously
you have to understand that sometimes that is the way things are, and it's very unfortunate, but that's just sometimes the way things are.
Same with our dad.
Well, I mean, like I said, it's the way of the world, of our contemporary society. In the past, and when we were, prehistoric, whatever, we would all live in the same tribe all of our lives, and we'd spend all of our time with just the same handful of people, 15, 20 people of our tribe, and we would all live together forever. And we would know each other intimately, and we would have great bonds, great rivalries, all kinds of problems and benefits that come from living with the same people throughout your entire life. That's the way things were in the past, but that's not the way things are today. And to think that you can somehow, try to recapture that in a practical sense, it's just not possible. So a lot of times pursuing an objective that is really unrealistic, whatsoever that objective may be, and no matter how laudable the objective may be, but if it's unrealistic, it's just going to be a drag on you and take you nowhere. So you have to understand it and just put on the big boy pants and say, I love my sister. I always wish we could have had like a profound and meaningful relationship, but because of the choices in life that she is making and the choices in life that I am making, we're just not going to have much time to hang out and develop a close relationship. Simple as that.
Maybe one more question, since you touched on the subject of socializing. What's the best way, or in what way can I, when I go abroad to a different city, maybe one that I have never been before, to how can I get to know the most influential, the most interesting, upper class, whatever people? Where's the best way to get in contact with those people? Because I'm very extroverted, I can easily like start talking to people. But where's the location or?
Okay, so wherever you're at, wherever you are, you're in Hamburg. Okay, so suppose, for the sake of argument, you're going to Prague in Czechoslovakia or in Czech Republic, right? Suppose you're going to Prague. So you tell your friends. You tell all your friends around. Oh, I'm going to Prague. Do you know anybody in Prague? Okay, you ask everybody.
Right.
Okay? Now you want to know business, right? You want to get involved in business in Prague because you just like the city, but you don't know anybody in the business world, right? You ask your lawyer. You ask your lawyer in Hamburg, right? And by the way, if you're 25, right, and you're in Hamburg, you should find an influential lawyer there and become his client. Okay? And you become his client and you throw him any little job that you have and you tell him, look, I've got just little jobs here and there that I need taken care of, right? But you find a good lawyer, preferably at a big firm. Now, why do you do this? Well, because see, lawyers, they know each other across, borders. Okay, a good lawyer will know the name of another good lawyer in some other city or other country. And if he doesn't, he'll be able to tell you, look, you want to go to Prague, right? I don't know anybody in Prague, but I know this this lawyer in Krakow, and he probably knows somebody in Prague. And he'll put you in touch with that guy in Krakow, this lawyer in Krakow. And the Krakow lawyer will listen to you, say that you come from, some lawyer in Hamburg, right? And this lawyer in Hamburg will send an email to the lawyer in Krakow saying that you're all right. And so that lawyer in Krakow will put you in touch with some lawyer in Prague and will send in turn an email saying you're all right to that lawyer in Prague. And in Prague, you get there and there you have this contact with this lawyer. And you'll be able to establish a business relationship through that lawyer in Prague. See? And see those informal emails between the lawyer you have in Hamburg and the lawyer in Krakow and the lawyer in Krakow to the lawyer in Prague, right? All of that he will inform, each lawyer will inform the next one in this chain that you're all right, that you're serious or successful or whatever the fuck, right? When I was living in London, for instance, to give a specific example, I wanted to do there was a business opportunity there. And what happened was that I knew just a couple of people there that were central to this business, but I wasn't really sure and whatnot. And so I talked to a lawyer, a friend of mine in Chile, who's still my lawyer. And he put me in touch with a guy he knew at the Chilean British cultural, I forget the name of the fucking thing. It was attached to the embassy, right? And I'm pretty sure that the two guys I talked to were actually like intelligence officers pretending to be like business attaches, right? So anyway, these guys, they were great guys. We shot the shit for like an hour or something, or no, maybe 45 minutes. And they put me in touch with some primo lawyers in London, Magic Circle lawyers. Magic Circle are lawyers that are like high end, right? And through those lawyers at this Magic Circle firm, I was able to get all the contacts I needed to do the things that I wanted to do in London. Okay, that's how it works insofar as business is concerned, and insofar as friends and social life, you got to just ask the people you know in the city where you're at if anybody knows somebody in that other city, and you find that other person in that other city, and you make friends with them and tell them, look, I'm new here and I want to meet as many people as possible. And they'll be happy to put you in touch with people. There's, so long as you come across as a nice guy, easygoing, not an asshole, basically, you'll be fine. And that's how it works. That's how it's always worked.
Yes. Well, the thing with friends, I don't worry as much about because I do know many people all around those countries who can get me in touch. But the aspect about getting in touch with a good lawyer is very interesting. So thank you very much for bringing that up. I do think that I have an influential network, but what would you say is the best way of getting to or finding a good lawyer in my own city? Because I do not have many lawyers in my network.
Well, you have to find the most senior guy that you know, the most successful, who's a little bit older than you, or a lot older than you. It doesn't really matter. And sometimes it's just good to just tell him, look, I need to hire a really, really good lawyer because I don't have anything right now, but I want to have that name in my back pocket. Okay. And I'm willing to, pay him a retainer, just sort of like to show how serious I am. A retainer is like a prepayment that you make. Usually it's like 5,000 euros or 10,000 euros or $10,000 or $5,000, right? If you don't have any real specific work, paying some lawyer 5,000 euros or $5,000, that's reasonable. Like a high-end lawyer at a real firm. Okay. And you'll just tell them, look, I want to have you on retainer. That's what you call it, at least in English. I don't know how you call it in German. And find out about the etiquette in Germany, because in different countries, there's different etiquettes. Okay. In some countries, you don't have to pay them anything. They only charge you when they actually do work for you, but they'll happily meet you for free. Okay. But in other countries, like in the US, for instance, it's usual that you have to pay a retainer. Okay. And it's like money in the bank. Okay. And if nothing ever happens and you leave the city and and the lawyer never worked for you, you can tell them, look, I'm leaving the city. There was no legal work for me. So can you return the retainer? And they'll say, sure, no problem, done. Okay. But like I said, it's different in different countries, and I don't know the situation in Germany. Okay. But you go to a senior guy that you know fairly well. But perhaps you're not intimate with him, but you know him and he respects you and he thinks that you're all right. You got to pick a guy who thinks that you're all right, not somebody who thinks that you're an idiot or an asshole. Okay. So you find that guy who's like a senior guy to you, and you tell him, look, I need a lawyer just in case, just to have somebody ready. Okay. And what I'm doing is I'm reaching out to different people to find the right attorney. And I just want like a name of some lawyer that you really trust. And you tell them, like, look, the work is going to be mostly commercial, right? And but I just want to have somebody in case it's necessary. They'll be happy to give you a name. You interview a few. And when you interview them, what you do is you pay attention to the firm. If the firm is a good, large firm, the larger, the better, because they'll have more attorneys and therefore more contacts if anything pops up, right? And you meet with the attorney and you figure out, is this guy sharp on the ball or is he kind of like a nerd? Because there are lawyers who are nerds and they are of limited utility, okay? A lawyer who is a nerd is not going to understand that his job is to put you in touch with other people. But a lawyer who is more on the ball will understand this. He will understand that a big part of his job is to put his clients in touch with other clients or other clients of other lawyers, okay? There was one lawyer I hired one time, guy called Skylar Moore. And this is out in LA. He was entertainment lawyer. He was a fucking idiot. He didn't understand his job. It was surprising that he had climbed the ladder as high as he had, but he did not understand his job. And I replaced him with somebody else. But that happens all the time, where a lawyer thinks that his job is just to solve legal problems. He doesn't understand the social component of it. Okay. So anyway, what you do is you, like I said, you go to a senior guy that you know, he'll give you the names of good lawyers, and you pick a lawyer who comes across, that is, who understands his job. He's at a big firm, so he has a lot of contacts and a lot of people to draw on. And if he's not in a big firm, but he has like a big personality and knows a lot of people, then it doesn't really matter. You see? I mean, between a lawyer who's a nerd at a big firm and a lawyer who's a people person at a smaller firm, pick the lawyer who's a people person. Okay? Understand what you're buying. Okay? and you got to be willing to shell out, like I say, 5,000 euros as a retainer, just like shelling it out and it's just sitting there.
I see, like a deposit.
It's a deposit. That's what a retainer is.
Yeah.
Okay, and you got to do that, and and if you start like nickel and diming, or does it really have to be 5,000? Then it's going to be like, you're not really serious. Okay, you got to understand that you're going to shell out money, and because like contacts cost money. Okay. Or they cost money, or they cost something. There's always a price to everything. Okay.
Well, basically, I can treat this retainer like an insurance, as I understand it. What other things should I at this? Because 5,000 euros is all right, but obviously I don't have a large amount of financial assets already. I'm just starting out my career, as I said. So what other things do you think I should focus on when I'm starting out at my career and I just have a limited financial resources?
You got to figure this out on your own, man. I mean, we've been going on for quite a bit. Okay. And there's
this insurance is already very helpful. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's here, because there you're going into such a vague question. What else can I do?
I'm not asking for financial advice or anything.
I know you're not asking for financial advice, but you're asking such a broad question that, dude,
education obviously pays the highest ROI, I'd say.
What? I'm sorry?
Education pays the highest ROI, I'd say.
I beg your pardon, I didn't hear you.
Education pays you the highest ROI, the highest return on investment.
Well, that's debatable, especially in current educational system, but okay, I'll let it slide. So what's your point?
Or e-learning or all of those resources?
Okay, Lucas. Okay, you have to understand something that's very important in business. Less is more. Okay, there comes a moment when you have overstayed your welcome, and you have to recognize that. Okay. In this conversation that we're having, I was happy to answer your 3 questions, and they became 4 questions. That's fine. But then 5 questions, and I'm sure it'll become 6, 7, 8 questions.
No, that's all right. That's all right. I don't want to frame it that way. I'm very thankful for the input.
Lucas, no, it's something that you should learn, because this is important. Okay, what I'm going to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
When you say that you're going to ask 3 questions of somebody, that's perfectly fine. And you can ask them, and they'll go into great detail. Right now, I've gone with you for like 20 minutes so far. Okay, I'm happy to. But then you add another question. You're pushing the patience of the person you're speaking to. Okay, you have to recognize that. You cannot be blind to the reaction that you are eliciting from the person you're speaking to. And then after I answer your 4th question, you started asking me a 5th question that is so open-ended that my patience is over. This hurts you. You should never put yourself in a position where somebody becomes impatient with you, because it doesn't matter with me. I'm just a dude on the internet. Who gives a fuck, right? But if you're trying to develop a contact with somebody, be it a lawyer or any business person, you have to understand that their time is valuable. And you don't want to be overstepping your time. You want to be getting exactly the information you need from them and conveying to them the information that you want them to have about you as quickly and efficiently as possible. If you start overstaying your welcome, they're not going to want to have more interaction with you. Like, suppose this was a conversation with you.
I get your point. Yes. I understand it the first time you said it. Thanks very much. That's very helpful input.
Hang on. You have to understand, this is a problem with Germans in general. Okay. Because I lived in Germany. Unfortunately, I don't speak any German, but I know enough about German. And like I said, my maternal grandmother was German, and I have a couple of uncles who are fucking German to the fucking core, even though they're half Chilean and half German. And this is a peculiar blindness of German people, and you should be aware of it. Germans often as not do not realize when they have overstayed their welcome. They are not. No, but listen. They are not sensitive to what other people's reactions are. You should work on this. It's important. Okay, Lucas? I'm sure you'll be very successful, but you have to understand, okay, that there comes a moment when you have to say, okay, thank you. And even if you have more questions, even if they're burning inside you, you have to realize when you're pushing your luck, and you have to listen to the other person you're speaking to and understand when the guy's like, okay, enough. Okay, Lucas?
Okay, just to sum it up, I think that your points were very helpful. I hope you can keep them short as possible because I understand them the first time you say it.
Take it easy. Bye-bye. Hi, Watcher. How's it going? Oh, it's Russell. How's it going, Russell?
All's well. Yeah, that was quite the lesson. Yeah, hey, Coach. So, I mean, I thought I would.
He's a great guy, and he's a smart man. Okay, he just has to understand what other people are thinking. Think of the other motivations of the other people. Okay, Russell, what's on your mind, man? And Russell, you'll be the last person on the show because we've gone 3 hours and 15 minutes. So yeah. So what's on your mind?
Yeah, sounds good. Well, I didn't really have any dollar questions, but everyone was asking different questions, so I figured I would ask a different question.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So, Coach, I wanted your opinion on this first. So, do you agree that everywhere you go, there is a collective conscience or cult of personality, if you will?
What? Wait, run that by me again, please.
That there's a collective conscience everywhere.
A collective conscience or consciousness?
No. Collective conscience.
Yes. There's collective consciousness and there's collective conscience. They're two different concepts, and so that's why I'm asking you to if you're.
What's the difference? I've never heard the other one.
Is like the general zeitgeist or how most people feel about any given topic. That's a general collective consciousness. Collective conscience rather doesn't exist. Okay, and so that's why I was wondering what you mean by collective conscious. Collective conscious.
Okay, no. So talking about the zeitgeist, and you've spoken about in your several videos.
Collective consciousness.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Well, that's what zeitgeist means. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and you've spoken about this before that you're going to have to socially cuck out from time to time. I was wondering if you could expand on how to.
I don't think I've ever said socially cuck out from time to time.
No. Oh, okay.
Oh, what do you mean specifically?
Like, let's say, for example, you want to get into a group, and that group, they expect you to buy into their narrative. And
that's perfect. That's part of the game. Sure. Yeah, when in Rome, dress like the Romans or do the Romans. Yeah, sure.
Right.
Like, for instance, there are a lot of people who say, "Oh, I'm never going to wear a suit. Suit is corporate. Suit is this, that, the other." Well, fine, but there are some groups of guys who, if you're not dressed in a nice suit from a nice tailor, they're not going to take you seriously. Simple as that. Mm-hmm. I mean, and there are some other places, like in Silicon Valley or wherever the fuck, where if you don't show up in, flip flops and shorts and a t-shirt, they don't take you seriously. I mean, there are all kinds of weird clothes customs or whatnot, right? You gotta just go with the flow, and that's not cucking out, okay? That's just blending in, and it has to be done. And to pretend that you can afford to do it, the only people who can afford to do it are extremely rich people whom everybody else wants something from. Okay, they're the only people who can do that. Okay, and not even, because a lot of times those very rich people will want something from somebody else, and so those very rich people will have to adapt to that group of people that they want something from. So you see what I'm saying? Yeah.
Right. Are you referring to how like Zuckerberg's the only guy who could show up in a t-shirt and jeans, but everyone else has a suit and a tie on, something like that?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, sure. Yeah, but he only dresses that way when he knows that other people want something from him. When he wants something from somebody else, he dresses the way those other people expect him to dress. Yeah. And I've seen Zuckerberg in a suit. He doesn't wear it very well, by the way, but he does wear a suit when he has to. Yeah. So anyway, what's your question?
No, that was kind of it. Thanks so much, Coach. Appreciate it.
Okay, no problem. Okay, boys and girls, I'm going to close out this thing because I'm a little bit exhausted. I kind of like ran out of gas. Okay, so what were we talking about? Oh wait. I'm checking out the the what you call it, the chat here. Hang on a second. Let me read up where we're at. Well, you know, I mean, I don't mean any disrespect to anybody, okay? But there's that great saying by Michelle Schacht, who, by the way, has been completely memory holed. I mean, you can't even download her music from torrents, which is a real shame because she was a great songwriter, great musician. But she had the song called "The Secret to a Long Life is Knowing When It's Time to Go." Take that to heart. The secret to a long life is knowing when it's time to go. And if you're not sure when to go, always leave early. Okay? It's better to have people, it's better to leave people wanting more of you than to leave people feeling sick of you. Okay? It's very important. It's a very simple process. All you have to do is see if you're not sure whether you should stay, go. It's as simple as that. If you're like unsure whether you should just continue or maybe leave, leave. Okay? When you are absolutely sure that you need to speak up, then what you're saying is essential, then stay. Yeah. But if you're not sure or you get that vibe that, you know, people's impatience is creeping up, leave. It's better to leave people wanting more of you than people being sick of you. Okay? And this is a lesson for everybody. And believe me, this has happened to me. When I was younger, I would often overstay my welcome. There's the expression, overstaying your welcome. Okay? Because people are happy to see you, but if you overstay your welcome, later they don't want to see you. Later, when you might need to see them. See? And I made that mistake plenty of times when I was younger. Everybody does. It's part of growing up. And I hope that people who were on the show who might have overstayed their welcome will listen to me that it's not personal. It's not like, you know, I dislike anybody. I don't dislike anybody. Yeah. It's just a natural human reaction that there comes a moment that you're like, okay, we're good. We're good. Okay. And know that moment. Understand that it's not personal. They don't dislike you. It's just that you've overstayed your welcome. And it can only hurt you. And that's why you want to avoid it. Okay? Okay, boys and girls, I will catch you next week. Yes, next Sunday. Yeah, because this week, by the way, I'll be riding out to Kiev on my motorcycle tomorrow morning, as a matter of fact. And then I'll be coming back on Friday. And then on the following Monday, I'm going to go out to Russia, if all goes well, assuming. So anyway, but I'll still be doing the weekly webinar on next Sunday. So yeah, I don't know what the topic will be, but I'll announce it soon enough. Okay? Okay. Take it easy, guys.